All right, it's 7:30. Are we ready to begin? All right, good evening and welcome to our regular meeting. Today is January 4th, 2021. Before we begin, I would like to call to order, and if Council Member Nason would recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you.
Will do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilman Mason. We'll go ahead and do roll call at this time.
Councilmember McCray,
Here. Here.
Councilmember Nason,
Here.
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Here.
Mayor Gary.
Here. Thank you, Ann. We'll go down to number 4, since we don't have any ceremonial matters. It looks like we would have a report on action taken in closed session. Mala, did you want to report anything?
Thank you, Mayor Gary. Council gave direction to staff.
Okay, thank you. And now we're moving down to the consent calendar. And so at this time, if anyone would like to pull anything. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yes, I'd like to pull 5.1 and 5. Actually, just 5.1, please.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll take it to the public. If there's anyone in the public would like to pull anything off the consent calendar.
Jeremiah,
Looks like
are
we
you
have one.
pulling anyone? I mean, are you pulling any item or are you waiting to talk for good of the city?
Yeah, pulling an item. Yes, please. And get a chance to review the minutes. I was gonna comment on minutes from the last meeting. I'd like to pull 5.1.
Okay, 5.1.
5.4, 6, 7, 12.2, 14.2.
I can hear. So Jeremiah, we're on the consent
Ju-
calendar. So number
Yeah,
5, if
consent.
you can repeat yourself. Correct. If you can repeat yourself, please.
Okay, it's 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, 7.2,
Jeremiah.
12.2, 13,
Jeremiah.
13 and 14.2.
I understand.
Yes.
But right now we're at the consent calendar, and I just want to regurgitate what you stated. 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, and 5.5. Is that correct? Okay. We'll go with that because
Not 5.5, 5.6.
There is no 5.6.
there's no 5.6, Jeremiah. And then the other items that you're trying to pull are not on the
14.2.
consent. Jeremiah, the items that you're trying to present are not on the consent calendar. So look at number 5, and let's just make sure that you're pulling from the consent calendar only, please.
Okay.
Okay.
5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.
5.4 and 5.5, is that what you're stating?
Yeah,
Okay.
5.4 and 5.5. Yeah, 5.5. I'm sorry, not 5.6, 5.5.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, consent.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Is
there anyone else? I don't see anyone. Do you see anyone, Ann?
No.
All right, I'll bring it back to the council, and we'll start with 5.1 from Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yes, I just had a potential correction on the 12:21 minutes. I don't know whether to take that up now or after public comment. At your preference.
If you want to go ahead and present it now, and then
Sure.
you can go from. Thank you.
Yes, so under item 12.4, which regarded the council subcommittees, I reviewed the video to my memory was correct, because often it's not. But my understanding is that the council sunsetted the Alta Bates Hospital subcommittee in deference or recognition of Albany having representation on and the function of the intercity task force on that topic. And so I thought it'd be useful to reflect that in the minutes, since that was one of the prior council subcommittees.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Anyone else want to comment on that? All right. Go ahead.
Mayor, I believe Jeremiah had pulled 5-1.
5-1, correct. Hold on, Vice Mayor McQuaid. I'm sorry, Councilmember McQuaid, sorry. You're on mute. You're on
Start
mute.
again.
Okay.
I'm not sure sunset is actually the correct term.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Councilmember McQuaid, thank you. Go ahead.
I mean, the subcommittee didn't end, and I think it's a matter of semantics, and I'm happy to support what the vice mayor is saying. I just don't want it to look as though we got rid of a committee and started again, because we really didn't do that. We just put it in the proper place.
Okay. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yes, the minutes for the prior item show that that is an appointment now to regional bodies, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and look. So it is reflected in the minutes. I'm agnostic on however it should be reflected, but I think there should be some comment on it under in the minutes under item 12.4, since we did discuss it there. And from my perspective, it seemed like there was some sort of transition that was agreed to.
I just think transition is probably a better word.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. And if you want to go ahead and bring Jeremiah in at this time for 5-1.
Good evening, City Council. Good evening, Ann. 5-1, in the minutes, it does read as there was free showers were available. I'd like to change that because it just looks like the city provided it, which was not true. I would like the correction to say that Jeremiah brought free showers to Albany in honor of Elaine, possibly, please, because that's the truth of the matter. Please, respectfully.
I'll bring it back to the council for discussion about the recommendation from public. Are we considering this, or? Go ahead, Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yes, I think that's reasonable to make that addition or that clarification, unless city staff confirms otherwise, but that is my understanding of the situation.
Okay. Any objections? Any other thoughts, comments? All right, we will make to move the motion when we're done. Is that correct? Or do you want to do it now when we're done? Okay. 5-2. Will you let Jeremiah in, please, Ann?
Okay, thank you. Just a general question. It just says payroll, and I'm just kind of wondering, payroll of what? Is it the city staff? Is it the fire department, the police, the recreation department? I was just curious what the payroll refers to.
Okay, thank you, Jeremiah. City manager, would you like to answer that question, please? Just clarification of what the payroll is.
Payroll is for all city staff.
All right, thank you. Now we're moving down to 5-3.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Okay, 5-3. it just says bills, claims, and demands. And I was just curious, like what bills, what claims, and what demands? And if that information is available to the public, is there a link for that to review?
So I believe on the agenda, there says 5.3, it's distributions amounts. Did you click on that and weren't able to look at that?
I possibly overlooked that. Thank you.
All right. City manager, is there anything else outside of that? No? Okay, thank you. And now we're moving down to 5.4.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jeremiah.
Thank you, Anne. It looks that it says the SEJC has only been appointed 4 people. It's got 5 council members on the committee, and it just doesn't say who the 5th person is. It doesn't say, I guess, who the mayor appointed. And also, is it supposed to be 5 or 7 on that commission?
Okay, so I'll answer that question. So on the last meeting that we had, basically the appointments were made in our last meeting, and that should be in the minutes. Is that correct, city manager? And so if you count those items, right, if you go back to the minutes and look at those appointments and then figure in what you see today, that would be the total amount of the members that have been appointed on the various commissions, boards, and committees. All right, and last, 5.5. Go
We
ahead and
have
let
one
Jeremiah.
more hand raised.
Oh, sorry, thank you. On 5.4 or,
I think it's probably for 5.4.
okay, go ahead and let them in, please, thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Thiel. I just wanted to say thank you real quick for the appointment, and I look forward to serving with my friends Brian Martin and Todd Abbott. And just to expand on the last point, whoever gets appointed, what's listed in the agenda is just the people that were appointed the last time, whatever. So, anyway, so I'm looking forward to serving again, and thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and we'll go to 5.5. Go ahead and let Jeremiah in.
Thank you. Yeah, it says 5.5. It says SEJC Counsel at Large, Sierra Connolly. I was just wondering what that means, SEJC Counsel at Large, and who that person is and how they're associated with it.
Okay, is there anyone else? All right, city manager, can you explain to Jeremiah what counsel at large is? And as far as that person, the young person that was appointed to that, I don't think we should give out that information unless I'm in error.
The individual submitted an application for a consideration of appointment. The council has an at-large seat to fill on this commission.
All right. All right, with that said, we'll go ahead and make a motion. It looks like the only correction would be in 5.1. Is that correct? Unless I'm missing something, I'll go bring it back to city council. Go ahead, council member Nason.
I was just going to move the consent calendar.
Oh, go ahead. We have a second.
So moved.
Okay.
Is that a motion with the 2 changes to the minutes for 12/21?
Correct.
I'll second that.
You'll second that? All right, we'll go ahead and take it to a vote.
Sorry, I was muted. Councilmember McQuaid,
Yes.
Councilmember Nason,
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
Mayor Gary.
Yes,
Motion.
thank you. Now we're down to good of the city for public comments. Please note that anyone that's interested into commenting on something that is not listed on the agenda, you have 3 minutes. Please raise your hand and our city clerk will let you in.
Okay, I got 3. The host keeps muting me. Am I on now? Okay. I just want to acknowledge the CIP program manager, Robert Gonzalez. He's been working with Albany for 3 years, and he's going to be leaving our city staff, I guess, next week or in a couple weeks. I just want to acknowledge that. A few things on our Albany website, albanycalifornia.org. It talks about services. One of them says the cooling center. It's kind of outdated. It's winter time, and I was just wondering, what about a warming center, you know, when it's raining or less than 40 degrees? I noticed a couple more services, a pet license. Someone has to license their dog, and the city charges $20 a year to license your dog. That's kind of weird. There's a sandbag day, just to let the public know, on January 11th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Ocean View. You can fill up to 10 bags. Coffee with the cops has not been happening, but I think a solution to coffee with the cops, that way the public can get to know the officers get to know the public, would be to hold that on Zoom, to where the officers can have coffee with the cops on Zoom. Chinese New Year's coming up, February 12th. I'm wondering what we're going to do about that. Maybe we can have that on Zoom. Albany CERT, there's this class this Wednesday from 7 to 8:30. The Zoom ID number is 839-5749-899, and the passcode is 253257. Also, the city manager, it says she makes $207,000, $207,432 a year. She's the highest paid staff member. I also noticed that the council members only get paid $300 a month. That comes down to $10 a day, which is less than minimum wage. I suggest that council members get paid at least minimum wage 1 hour per day. Also, the fire department, I believe Measure DD and CC did pass. CC and DD did pass, even though EE did not. But in DD, it does say there's money for disaster and emergency preparedness, $675,000. Some of that should go to the fire department, creating one more job. Also with Measure CC, emergency response services, $392,000. Some of that money should go to the fire department because there's going to be earthquakes. There's a lot of earthquakes been happening. And our fire department right now only has 19 people, 3 captains, 1 chief, 3 lieutenants, 6 engineers, and 6 firefighters. I suggest adding at least 1 more firefighter to their staff.
Jeremiah, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Next.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you. Hello, Council and Mayor and Vice Mayor. Good evening. The news about the pandemic is not good these days. There does seem to be a little bit of recovery in this area, but the ICU bed count in certain areas is down to 0%. Despite this, I urge you to consider asking the county to open up outdoor dining and personal services at the earliest possible moment. It's a matter of the livelihood of the folks who run restaurants and who run personal services, and a matter of our economy. Despite the fact that I have heard no evidence of the spreading of COVID due to the opening of outdoor dining and personal services, these sectors were shut down in the most recent order. And what we are told is that private gatherings are the cause of most of the spread. So I think it would be prudent, or I think it would be the right thing to do, rather, to open up those 2 sectors at the earliest possible moment when there are signs of recovery. Thank you for considering.
Thank you, Neil. Next, please.
Go ahead, Brian. Brian, go ahead.
Yes, I was also having a problem getting muted coming in. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Thiel. I just wanted to talk about the last year has been a very difficult year, and let us not lose sight of the 3 difficult years before that. And just reflecting back on some of the work that I did when I was on the Social and Economic Justice Commission to repair some of these issues, one of the things that came up was the celebration of Loving Day, which is a day that commemorates, interracial marriage. And the reason I think this is so important right now, is because of the racism factor. What is racism? In a way, it's viewing people as two different species rather than a variation of the same species. So marriage is really the ultimate barrier to seeing things that way. So on that note, I think we had a proclamation. I think it would be good to actually have an actual ceremony. So on that note, I would like to read this poem that I have written. And it goes like this. Republicans are red, Democrats are blue. COVID is everywhere. Oh, what can we do? A new hope I have found. In you it is true. The world will agree on me and you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Next.
Go ahead, Corey.
Good evening, Council. A couple of things, mostly in response to other public comments. First, I want to be clear and directly answer Jeremiah about SEJC being 7 seats, 2 of which are at large, and what at large means, which I think can be confusing for folks who aren't familiar with that diction. So I think just saying these are at large seats isn't an answer to that question. So the first 5 seats are appointed, 1 by each of the 5 council members. Then there are 2 seats which are at large, which means that they're not directly picked by 1 council member. So all 5 people have to sort of agree, which is why that's a separate item on this agenda that has to be ratified. So that's what that is. I would also like to remind the public that ladies and gentlemen excludes people like me who are non-binary and neither a lady nor a gentleman. I would like to voice my disagreement as to reopening public services while we're in this massive upspike. And I would like to, not public services, public business stuff that is not essential. And to voice my disagreement with coffee with a cop being something that needs any kind of funding that police would be paid to do if they want to do it in their off hours and people want to be friends with them. Okay. But I don't think it should be a paid thing at all. And then the actual original thing that I would just bring up is with the stimulus checks, though there are people who are going to have serious difficulty getting them, even though they really need them. I have multiple friends who are claimed as adult dependents by family that do not support them nearly enough and often keep them at home in an abusive situation, or they are out on their own, but they don't make enough money to, especially adult dependents and a lot of disabled folks who aren't disabled enough to go through and have enough advocacy to go through the often multi-year process to get SSI in order to then be on the, yes, you are checkmark disabled and get that. I don't think that there's something that the city can do because it is a federal way that the stimulus checks are dispersed, excluding adult dependents, but I did want to just raise that for the good of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Looks like that's all the attendees. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. I would like to thank the public for their comments and their concerns, and we'll definitely take those in consideration. Thank you. All right, we're down to number 7. And so these are the subcommittee reports. 7-1, 7-2, 7-3 are also city council meetings and events. And I'll just ask, did anyone attend any events the past couple of weeks? Go ahead, Councilmember McQuaid.
Thank you. It's pretty slow, nice couple of weeks, but I did attend the Black Parrot Advisory Group Kwanzaa celebration on December 26th, which was really a great event. So just wanted to give them a shout out for a good event.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who want to report or share any meetings or events? All right. We are now down to the city report by the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things to share. Anna, if you can help me share screen. I wanted to take a moment just to refresh on things that are probably, if you know about them, are very easy. If you don't, please take advantage of the opportunity. E-notification is information delivered directly to your inbox on subjects you want to learn about. So you see from our drop down, it's a couple of clicks away and you will get the information on subjects that you want to hear about. And this is something that we update frequently in terms of new topic areas, either in the calendar item or the subject matter, and try to do our best to make sure that communication is ongoing. Secondly, on our website, contact us. And I hover on this. It seems like a really simple thing, but I hover on it because we're still, thank you for bearing with all of us collectively, finding ourselves in a pandemic. And with that comes some wear and tear. And I absolutely respect how well the community is doing with very trying times. While our offices remain closed to the public, you are welcome to call or email to contact us, and essential services remain ongoing. The third item I'd like to just do a quick refresher on is our planning efforts for San Pablo Avenue specific plan. Anne, do you have that to share?
Yes.
Thank you. The website is sanpablospecificplan.org, and you can go to that to get the most current news on this planning process. Again, it's an ongoing planning process. San Pablo crosses our entire community in one way or another, and all input is really vital to the success of this project. So please join online here for the open house, learn more about the project, and just figure out the next steps involved in this public planning engagement. A couple of other quick updates from city departments. The fire department did a fantastic job as usual, but this year even more so. They had a huge turnout for Toys for Tots this year, and most of the toys went to families in Albany. So thank you to all the work at towing toys around town, a really important service that they elect to do themselves. And toys were also donated to the Richmond Rescue Mission. Public Works is busy as usual. We have a couple of paving projects that are ongoing, both on Adams Street and Washington Avenue will be starting very soon. We don't anticipate any changes in the schedule for either of those projects. It is finally raining. I certainly heard it pouring today during my meetings. And with that, Public Works is very busy. You will see them out and about, making sure storm drains are flowing and debris is removed from those areas. As mentioned earlier, I appreciate the mention. Ongoing service for the sandbags. You can pick up the bags at the firehouse, and the sand, as usual, is located down at Ocean View Park. For those that may have had holiday trees at home, in January, Waste Management, our garbage hauler, will collect those trees if you put them curbside on your regular pickup day. And please note that our parks are currently closed for the season for seasonal maintenance. And finally, I want to make sure that to repeat that there will be a rent review program presentation by Echo Housing, our support service group, on Thursday, January 21st at 6 p.m. This will be a Zoom webinar training for both tenants and property owners. for information on the city's rent review program. To register, the website is echofairhousing.org. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Councilmember Nason?
Yeah, first, I wanted to give a shout out to Public Works for the work. They've done a couple of things at the waterfront of tremendous benefit to park users, one being filling the potholes that had become so very large. And it was, that's something you want to see before they fill with water and newbies come along and don't realize that they're driving into a big hole. So that was fantastic. And also the reopening of the parking along the southern side of Buchanan. The demand is just astonishing down there. And one of the things we're going to have to work on in the future is how we plan for this to meet this amazing demand. I also have a question. I wanted to find out about the CAFR, if we could get, just so we have it on the public record, the plan with regard to the CAFR. And I'm wondering, we have an email, I think, from Heather Rowden explaining there are certain aspects of the CAFR that are still underway. But what is our ETA for that now?
Sure. I do want to start by saying that the audit reports due to our funding agency, ACTC, have been submitted, and they were submitted on time with the full reports. The CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Audit for the city, we anticipate producing that written report to the City Council ideally end of this week, sometime in January. We're hoping the end of this week, perhaps next week. When I have a better update from the auditors, I will be sure to share that information. And then we will work with the auditors to schedule a presentation for the City Council at a regular public meeting.
Okay, is the management discussion and analysis complete?
I think we are still coordinating with the auditors on the entire document.
Okay, but there will be a management discussion and analysis as
Correct.
part of the comprehensive annual financial report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and take it to the public. It looks like we have one. Is that correct, Ann? No, sorry, two. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Hi, thank you. This is, I'll try to make a public comment to 7.2.
Okay.
It was just, which ones are the paid bodies?
Okay, did he go? Jeremiah?
He finished his question.
Oh, okay. So you can go to the next person, and then we can answer questions if need be after all the attendees have made their comments. Sorry. Go ahead, Judy Kerr.
Yeah, thank you and good evening, Council. I wanted to just suggest that perhaps the audit that's being prepared for review by the Council could possibly be reviewed by the Finance Advisory Commission as well. Council may benefit from the perspective of community review of that, and I'd like to suggest that, if possible, a meeting be scheduled by Heather Rowden that we could review the audit prior to review by Council. This commission, this committee has been in place since early 2020 and has not yet met. It might be good to start the year with a meeting of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next attendee, it looks like it's Jeremiah. I'm sorry, David Danby. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. On the e-notifications, I have tried, I believe it's 3 times to pick those up, and it just hasn't worked. I did send an email recently to Jeremy, but I've not heard back. Is there anything else I need to do? I do get the e-notifications on Fridays, but not not the other ones that I've chosen.
All right, thank you.
Let me know when it's appropriate.
Will do. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
No, that's it.
All right, Nicole, did you want to give further instruction on the e-notification or clarification on that to David's question?
The situation may be specific, so we'll make sure that staff reaches out to rectify whatever the issue may be.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to the council. Go ahead, Councilman Tiedemann.
Just to quickly answer Jeremiah's question, I think info on which positions were paid is in our agenda materials from last meeting when we appointed all of these bodies.
I can also answer really quickly. It's the Alameda County Mosquito Abatement District, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, the Alameda County Waste Management Authority, the East Bay Community Energy JPA Board, the Housing Authority of County of Alameda, and the Alameda County Paratransit Advisory and Planning Committee.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Councilman Member Tiedemann. I would also like to piggyback on what Nicole stated about the firemen and the Toys for Tots. I was a part of that distribution, and it was exciting to see the families receive gifts from the fire departments when we did our social distancing, knocking on the doors, and just reaching out to the community. So I'm hoping the next couple of years, as we continue to build the momentum, we're reaching out to families and making this a special occasion for all. So I appreciate the firemen that did take the time to put the toys together and distribute them. Thank you. All right, it looks like we don't have any presentations, public hearing, unfinished business. We're down to new business, and that's 12:1. We want to go to our staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. I will start off the staff report and have a number of staff attending with us tonight. Let me just get my documents in order here. This is your review of advisory bodies to the City Council. The council reviews the advisory bodies on a periodic basis. It used to be per a certain number of years, and recently it's become an as needed endeavor. This was included with your materials this evening, basically as part of your work session administrative review items, because there are some things that may be timely, and at your last meeting it was raised specifically with regard to the at-large appointment to the Arts Committee, whether there is a general council consensus for making an amendment to that appointment to allow for an individual that is not a resident of the city to serve on that particular committee in that seat. In terms of the overall structure for this item, it is basically you have the advisory bodies and you are actively appointing members to those advisory bodies, as you saw earlier on your agenda this evening. The existing advisory bodies are starting their 2-year term, 2021 through 2022, and they will begin their work plans, which will be submitted to the council for review and consideration. Some of the possible discussion items are included in the staff report, certainly not limited to these discussion items, but generally just to gain some sense of discussion options. The existing advisory bodies to the City Council, are they still current and relevant? Are there any changes needed? Should any of the bodies be sunset at this time? Also, a question on City Council at large appointments and Board of Education appointments to advisory bodies to the City Council. Should the procedure for the at-large appointments be revised, and or the procedure for appointments made to advisory bodies by the Board of Education? Included in your staff report, you have a table that summarizes the current at-large appointments to advisory bodies as well as the Board of Education appointment to advisory bodies. A couple of other housekeeping items that we've experienced over time. In terms of replacement appointment timing, if an appointee resigns really close to the end of a 2-year term, should there be a certain date that a reappointment will simply be held over until the next term starts? For example, if an appointee were to resign unexpectedly in November, just prior to the 2-year term ending, would that individual seat be replaced for December, or would that simply be held over until the next 2-year term? Also, work plan development. Is the current process working in terms of the advisory body creating their work plan with reflection and deference to the whatever iteration of the City Council strategic plan be at that point in time? And then submittal for review and approval of the City Council, or is there another iteration of that process that may be of interest? And then we've cited just basically your current policy on work plans as part of the staff report as well. In terms of next steps, again, as mentioned, we did go ahead and draft Resolution 2021-01, your first resolution of the year, for the potential approval of council should you wish to make that amendment to the seat on the Arts Committee. Also, if there are any other changes directed by the council with regard to any of your other advisory bodies, staff can return with a resolution or ordinance, depending on where the body is defined in your policy documents, for review and approval by the council. I'd be happy to take any questions the council has at this time.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Any questions about council members? Vice Mayor Jordan?
Thank you, Marguerite. Let's see. So I noticed that the Media Access Committee only met once in 2019 and did not meet in January of this year, which was prior to shelter in place. I was wondering why that is, and I didn't go back further. It seems germane to the need for that committee if it's not meeting.
Preston, I'm sorry, could you repeat the committee? I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, the Media Access.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'll try to speak up.
No, there was just a bump.
Okay. Lots of bumps. So many bumps.
Too many bumps.
That committee has a set meeting schedule for quarterly meetings, and they didn't meet, unfortunately, for that particular meeting due to lack of quorum and vacancies at that time.
And was that the case in 2019 as well? Why 3 of the meetings out of the 4 were not held?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other bodies in that situation or are there any bodies that have mostly not met? I know Charter Review's not met, but that was by sort of direction of the council that actually has a work plan, but was prevented from meeting by the council. Are there any other bodies of the 11 or 12 that have not met?
At that frequency, no. That is an outlier. Otherwise, at times, meetings can either be rescheduled or canceled either due to lack of quorum or to lack of actionable content. That sometimes happens in the January timeframe in particular due to the transition period. Holidays, not too much going on the agenda, but primarily that number of missed meetings is specific to that particular committee.
Councilmember Nason?
I think that this was mentioned in the city manager's response to a question about the Community Media Access Committee. But, you know, a dilemma that we face in such a tiny town is that we try to set up committees to get certain things done. But because of the Brown Act, committees are actually can actually be an impediment rather than a force to get things done. You know, years ago we had that with we had a homeless task force and realized that we could be much more effective as an informal meeting group that could work together on issues without the constraints of the Brown Act. So the Brown Act is great when policies need to be developed, but the committee structure can actually be an impediment. And I think that's been an issue all the time that I've been on council with the Community Media Advisory Committee, because they do amazing work. They do things like the Film Fest and so forth, but those are really not projects that can be undertaken by a formal governmental body that is subject to the Brown Act. So I think that's one of the reasons that you see that particular committee not meeting. And I think we probably should talk about charter review. I think a decision was made last year to go ahead and make the appointments, but not to convene the committee unless and until there was a need for it. Personally, I think it would be better not to make the appointments until we know what we think they're going to be working on, because people, if you are trying to recruit somebody to sit on a committee and you say, look, there's this charter review committee, and they say, well, what kind of subject matter is involved? And the answer is, there is no subject matter at this point. At some point, we might have some subject matter. And as it turned out last year, we didn't have any subject matter for them. So my preference with regard to the Charter Review Committee, to which nobody has been appointed yet, would be just to defer that until we know that we're going to want advice from a Charter Review Committee. And then we recruit the people who are best equipped to deal with whatever the issue is that we want them to deal with. I don't really have an answer for the Community Media Advisory Committee. I'd want to hear what Jeremy Allen thinks is the best thing to do with it, but I think everyone should be aware that there's a lot of absolutely amazing work being done by the people who get appointed to that committee, but they're not doing it in the context of that committee. These are separate projects, if that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Councilmember McQuaid?
Thank you. I have a process question. Are we looking more right now for questions and then coming back after public comment for discussion, or are we kind of weaving it all together at this point?
Oh, I think at this time, the city manager has asked if we had any questions for her to address, and stay on point with that. I think the Vice Mayor Jordan and Councilmember Nason was basically stating their point of views on these issues. And so we'll take it out to public and then we'll bring it back in for further discussion.
Okay, then I don't have any questions. I just didn't want to miss my opportunity.
All right, thank you. Anyone else before we go to public? City manager, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not unless there's other questions, Mayor.
All right, thank you so much for your report. We will go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Thank you. This is Jeremiah. I was wondering if you could just let the public know what is a quorum. If there's 5 people on a committee, how many is a quorum? Is it 2, 3, 4, or 5? Also, Ms. McQuaid, Peggy, Councilmember McQuaid, excuse me, Corey, I apologize. Councilmember McQuaid, or Nason mentioned something on the homeless, that there's no homeless committee because the Brown Act interferes. I just feel like that might have been a passive way for the city to not create policies regarding homelessness if there's no committee to have. And the last thing I want to say is I did apply to be on the SEJC committee. And so I was just hoping anybody would consider to appoint me for that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Next.
Hi. Yep. Hi, this is Julie Winkelstein. I have a few comments about this item 12.1. I sent an email about this, so I'll just briefly say that I'd like to see the charge of the CMAC be extended to include communication with the community. So all members of the community have the opportunity to know what's happening in their city. It seems like a natural addition to this committee. I also wanted to comment on the fact that the January and April meetings for this committee have been canceled, but as far as I can see, there are now 4 people on it out of 7, which I think makes a quorum. So I'm not quite clear on why the January and April meetings were canceled before we even had a chance to meet. If it doesn't become the advisory body's charge isn't expanded to include the communication with the community, I request that there be a new committee formed that has that charge. It is completely not acceptable that the information about what's happening in the city is limited to an online presence, as we saw tonight with the city manager showing all the things on the website. So anybody that's either can't attend this meeting because they don't have access to the internet or a device, or they're not comfortable using it, aren't going to see that, and they're not going to go to the website. So we're leaving out a large number of people. So we need to engage community members and encourage them to participate, which also I think speaks to the Arts Committee. I wasn't listening that closely, but it sounded like there was a suggestion that we get somebody from outside the city because we aren't getting people to participate. I think that is in a large part due to a lack of communication. Let's see. There also, let's see, I want to make sure I cover everything. Councilmember Nason's comment about the homeless task force, I totally agree with Jeremiah. Nothing happened after I was on that homeless task force. We were getting a lot done. It was wonderful. We had members of the public who were experiencing homelessness. We were all working together. We worked really hard. And then it was disbanded. And nothing has been followed up in the city that's like that. It's actually a formal commitment by the city to admit and to commit to addressing homelessness. I just want to make sure I have so many notes here. I know that there are efforts by the city to let people know about meetings by posting little tiny pieces of paper in 2 locations with tiny little font, but that is not doing the trick. And we really need to let people know that we want them to be involved at every opportunity. And I think it's up to the city council and the city staff to make sure that happens, or turn it over to CMAC. I would be very happy to take that on as a newly appointed member. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Julie. Are there any other public? That's all right. All right, I'll bring it back to council. Did anyone want to address the questions or statements that were made to bring clarification? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and bring it for discussion. Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious to hear that the next community media access committee meetings in January, and I looked at the calendar in April, and it's late January. Why the show is canceled?
I'll need to follow up with the staff liaison on that, and what the remaining agenda items are for the current charge of that committee.
Okay.
I guess there's a larger question. Does staff have any perspective on the value of continuing that body, given the situation in the past? And reading through the history of the body, it seems like it was, very important to getting various access efforts going, to get the video channel going, to get the meetings televised and things like that. I'm not that familiar with its work plans. I'm just curious to hear staff's perspective.
Sure, and I can give you a removed perspective. Yes, the committee originated at a time when we were just getting used to public access, KALB Channel 33, as it has evolved over time. That is primarily content that is now administered by our media manager, Jeremy Allen. who's actually coordinating this meeting as we speak, which is why he isn't necessarily directly available at all times. To date, the committee, in recent years, the committee had a heavy presence with the Film Fest. That is now a city event. So the work towards the Film Fest is now supported by volunteers as opposed to a particular advisory group. In terms of moving forward with that group, there had been discussions at the staff level of whether more success would be achieved if it were a group of volunteers creating community content to be shared through media channels. That's really as far as that conversation has gone. Of course, that's simply at the staff level in recent years. Again, as something mentioned earlier, sometimes the Brown Act is incredibly helpful in guiding a policy level group. At other times, when it's a group of people wanting to do something and maybe do something, as a subgroup or whatnot, at a time and place that's convenient for them, the restrictions of the Brown Act can be limiting. And that may be one of the issues with this particular group.
Thank you. And I just realized, I think part of the reason I'm not familiar with the work plan is because it has no current work plan. Looking at the page, it has no 2019 to 2021 work plan. Its last work plan was for the prior 2 years. So thank you. I might have other things to discuss, but I'll leave that there for the moment. Let somebody else have a turn.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Councilmember McQuaid.
Thank you. I was thinking a little bit about this today, and the one thing that I came up with was was leaving CMAQ as it is, but asking them to consider how they could expand their communication in the community and have them come up with a plan as part of their work plan. To recommend to us either, yes, this is how they'd like to do that, or no, that really doesn't fit into their scope. And I'd like them to include some costs, if there'd be cost to this, or what the increase in staff time would be, and the commitment that the members are willing to make, because there would be some time commitments to this. So that may be a way to kind of put some energy into that committee and have them actually talk about if expanding the communication is something that they feel could be part of their charge.
Thank you, Councilmember McQuaid. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, I am in support of that, of either sunsetting the committee or taking the suggestion from the member of the committee, actually, to expand its scope. And I think that could have a synergistic effect if the committee does take up a role in looking at how better to have the city communicate information from itself out to the public in a way that will put the committee in an outreach mode where it's naturally talking to the public. And in doing so, it can also market, hey, you might want to also know you can put content on the city's channel. So it could possibly work together. I think it's an experiment worth trying.
Right.
But I'm more in favor of that than sunsetting the committee, I guess, is my point.
I would agree, Vice Mayor and Councilmember McQuaid. I think if we just have an active work plan to provide direction, right, that they can come up with ideas working with staff that will be implemented, that will help the community. We've heard over the past couple of years that communication within the city, we are missing a group of people that need to know what's going on in the city and that could actively contribute to the city. So community involvement is key, right? And so whatever we can do or that committee can do to get more engagement, getting these council meetings out, board meetings and things like that, that'll be something we want to encourage. So. Councilmember McQuaid.
So it sounds as though we've sort of got consensus on that. So can I move back to charter review? And it would be my suggestion that we sunset charter review as a committee and create a task force when it's needed to have a charter amendment or charter change or study something that's in the charter. So it's a task force with a defined topic, defined timeline, as needed. That would be my recommendation.
I would support that as well. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
So it sounds like we have consensus around the Community Media Access Committee. Does staff need a motion on that? Or, I mean, it sounds like the enabling resolution will need to be adjusted. So I don't know if we need a motion, but it sounds like some addition of language to its enabling resolution should come back to this body.
For clarity, as this will be transmitted back to a group that is continuing to be would likely be helpful either for a motion now with some specifics on what you're looking for from that committee to return to the council with, or direction to staff to formalize that in a resolution. A resolution isn't necessary, and it's really the pleasure of the council.
Okay, well, I think as a maybe viewing it as a 2-year pilot, maybe a motion is good enough as a way to go. I'll make a motion that the scope of jurisdiction of the Community Media Access Committee be expanded to include advising and working on communicating how to access information about city government to the community.
Let me correct what I just stated. If we are actually making the change in charge to the committee, staff will return with a formal resolution. I thought the request was closer to what Councilmember McQuaid had stated in terms of asking for a report back. Sorry about that.
So can we get a resolution before we do that motion? Have staff write that up.
Return a following meeting with a formal resolution.
Okay. So,
do you need a motion in terms of what to bring back in the resolution, approximately?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so that would be the motion I think I made. I don't know if I got it on the mark and have to adjust, or if there's no second, somebody else can take a shot.
I'll second that.
Could someone repeat the motion, please?
Vice Mayor Jordan, if you can repeat the motion with clear direction to staff.
I will try, and Ann can correct me if I get it wrong. So the motion is to expand the scope of the Community Media Access Committee to include advising and actually working upon improving access to the information about city government and city government processes via outreach to the community.
Okay, and then we received the second from Councilmember Tiedemann, is that correct? We'll go ahead and take it to a vote.
So before we do that,
go ahead.
So we're not asking them for any input on how this would work. We're just telling them that we're thinking their scope. Is that, am I understanding this correctly? That's okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Jordan. I'll let you jump in and I'll piggyback.
Yeah, that's my thought, and it's an increase in scope. So they have the opportunity via their work plan to do more or less in that domain in the draft work plan that they propose back. So this would basically allow the committee to discuss the issue and how far they want to go in this. I mean, we know that there's one member who is interested in working on this. So without this direction, I don't think the committee can really even be able to discuss what they would want to do in this area.
I would agree. Any other questions before we take it to a vote? All right, go ahead, Ann.
Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Mayor Gary?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Let's go ahead, Vice Mayor Jordan.
So on charter review, I mean, we could go the task force route, but the history that I remember and actually experienced because I was on the body was that it did have an approved work plan that had approved items on it that it had not completed from the prior session that it was going to continue working on, but then it was essentially directed by the council to no longer meet. The items that it has on that work plan are, at least some of them are of interest to me for it to continue working on. So I'm a little nervous about agreeing to sunset it because I can create an inertia that makes it harder to bring it back to work on those particular items.
When did it last meet? Do we know? When did we last have a charter review committee that held a meeting?
May of 2018.
Ooh.
But again, I want to emphasize that the council essentially told it not to meet. So it isn't that it didn't want to meet, it had work to do, but the council essentially told it not to meet.
But right now it has no members, and I think that for us to figure out among ourselves, and I'd be supportive of putting it on the agenda, and whatever those issues are that you'd like to see a committee take up, that we take a look at that. But I'd prefer not to be appointing people to a committee that has not met since May of 2018, and that we are not clear why we're convening them. But I would support our kind of clarifying that as a body and then putting it together. And the task force idea makes a lot of sense to me, but we can always come back to it. And you can, as a member of the council, you have the privilege of putting that on the agenda. You just need to communicate that to Mayor Gary.
All right, Councilmember Tiedemann.
Just on the point of whether to sunset this committee, I think there is some merit to keeping it around and appointing people if we can. I think, it not meeting is partly due to us and to the council or past councils, not us right now, because most of us weren't on this body when that committee hasn't been meeting. But I think it's important to realize that our charter could probably always be improved. And if we have people who are interested in sitting on a committee that's purpose is to be reviewing that without the limitation of us telling them they can only talk about, the one thing that we want them to meet about, then we might get more applications or have more interest or have people who want to be on it because they have issues they would like to discuss about it. Just like, we have a lot of these other committees without giving them a specific goal because we know that that area of interest is continuing to be of interest and one we have to continue to work on as a city. So I think there is some reason to keep it around and maybe take some of its limitations off and see if we have more interest and can appoint more people who want to get stuff done on it.
Thank you. I would agree to that. I think most of the committees and the boards that we have, members of the public need clear direction on what do you want me to do? What is my job? What are we supposed to accomplish? If that's not written out in a way to invite people to be a part of these commissions and boards, we're not going to get the applications that we need to fill them. So my concern is that if we keep it around, then I would like to see us put together the things that need to be implemented with timelines on how to get those done. If we want to simply push it aside to, as you say, a task force, I think it should be more of a committee versus a task force when we need them and what issues to discuss at their time. So we do have the option either to push it aside and as things come about, we address them at that point in time, or do we continue to update the work plan for that and present it in a way that we'll be inviting to those to commit to being on that charter review? And those are just my thoughts.
Well, how would you feel about simply putting this on an agenda to discuss what we would ask a charter review committee to do?
I would like that. We do more research on it, and then basically how we can implement it within the plans to make it more fruitful. I would like us to do that.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah. Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, I will note that without action, the committee does exist, at least in theory, because the enabling resolution is there. So happy to hold off appointing people and have those conversations.
Well, why don't we plan to have that conversation soon? Right now, it's really hard to appoint anybody to a committee and they want to know what they would be working on. And you say, really, I have no idea.
Exactly. And if we're having conversations with the people that we're appointing, the residents that we're appointing, you know, we're giving clear direction based on our strategic plan, what the city is looking for these applicants to do. And then that's what's making them want to be a part of these commissions. So if we can table this, possibly next agenda, that would work if that works within, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead. Nicole, if we could possibly, you know, bring this on the agenda for next 2 weeks, if that will fit. If not, we can try to push it for February, but I don't want to push it any further outside of February. Councilmember McQuaid.
The one thing I was going to suggest is that we're probably not going to change the charter until at least 2022. And that gives us 2 full years. And that seems like a really long time. So we could even push this back a year and give them a year to work on whatever it is that we want to work on. So I don't think it's a big rush at this point. I do think we do have one applicant, and it would probably be nice if we could send an email saying, you know, we're thinking about how to manage this committee. We haven't forgotten you. Just some kind of a contact with them so they don't think that their application went in the black hole and we don't care, but that we have some contact with the person who applied.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. Vice Mayor Jordan.
As a general principle, it's not the bright line. Maybe it could be. Committees do work themselves, and commissions, staff does work, and the commissions provide policy direction. I'd say it's not that clear bright line, but the charter committee being a committee has had a culture, you know, it's sort of been discontinued in terms of its institutional memory at this point, but had a culture of doing a lot of work itself. And I would suggest that waiting until a year before the 2022 election would constrain its options, because some of the issues that it deals with take longer than that to appropriately research. And if that research indicates some change is needed, then the next step is actually working to develop a proposed charter amendment. So I'm not in favor of waiting a year. I'd rather take this up sooner rather than later.
Okay, Vice Mayor Jordan, thank you. At this time, let's go ahead and try to move this to an agenda item for the next couple of months, and then we can address it more thoroughly once we have additional information on what direction we want to have this committee go. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, if we can, okay, Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
I don't know how we want to conduct this. I mean, I have a list of items, you know, it's kind of a weighty topic since we're reviewing all the advisory bodies. So I can just keep going through that list or take your.
Well, I think right now we need to look at this resolution that has been presented by staff and just make sure that we're on one accord with it. If there's any changes that need to be implemented to staff, so we can go ahead and move throughout the meeting. So as we look at this resolution, Councilmember McQuaid, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I feel like every time I raise my hand, you stop what you're doing. That is not my intent.
I'm like, oh, can I finish my thought? No, go ahead.
And I want you to finish your thoughts. You go ahead, and then it'll be my turn.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
I think I'm agreeing with Vice Mayor Jordan that there's a couple more things I want to discuss which sort of fall under the resolution, and I want to be sure that we get those in before we go too much further, if that's okay. And I'm also interested in what other council members have to say.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'd like to have us think a little bit about the library board and what its function actually is, and if it's really necessary at this point.
Let's hear from Councilmember Tiedemann first, Vice Mayor Jordan. Thank you.
I was just going to say that I had a very similar question that I was going to ask at some point, because I've heard from hearsay that the library board is not super active a committee to be on, and especially as I think our library is controlled mostly by Alameda County. I'd be curious what function they're serving right now and if we might sunset it.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, that's my perspective as well. Looking at their past agendas and their work plan led me to that same question. I did reach out to a member who was also, or is also, I can't remember which, Albany's representative on the county library board. Actually, I think she preceded the mayor, is my guess now that I try to remember the history. And she herself thought that the function of the library board, given that they're fairly narrow, could pretty readily be done in a more efficient manner by staff in interaction with the council. So she thought it would be reasonable to sunset from her perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Anyone else? Councilman
Point of procedure, if we wanted to sunset something, would we need a resolution or a motion or anything else?
Mala, can you answer that for me? Do we need a resolution or can we just move the motion?
I was going to defer to Nicole.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm looking to remember how they were originated. You know, ideally, it would likely be a resolution. I'm thinking, well, I hesitate because I don't know how many other changes will be directed by the council. So if there are other changes of a similar type nature, I can bundle them into one resolution, kind of as categorical changes to advisory bodies. If it's simply that the council knows that they want to sunset this one particular group, minute action would be sufficient for that at this meeting.
Okay. Vice Mayor Jordan.
So I do have other possible changes on my list to discuss. None of them are specifically regarding sunsetting a body. Next one I have, it does regard how to make these as a whole appointments. So I don't know if staff's preference would be to roll that into the same or have a separate motion on sunsetting the library board.
So are we all in agreement? I mean, can we just agree or just sunset the library board and that's okay? I mean,
You know,
go ahead, Councilmember Mason.
I am a little uncomfortable with just sunsetting it in this meeting without having some opportunity to hear from people who might feel that it's needed for community input. You know, we operate through the county and that's fine. But there certainly does need to be a community voice in library operations. So it concerns me a little for us to just say, well, let's sunset it now without offering those folks a chance to weigh in. It's just.
Councilmember Tiedemann. Thank you, Councilmember Nason.
Well, by the procedure that Nicole laid out, if we directed staff to bring back a resolution sunsetting the library board and doing any of the other changes we may suggest, then we would have a chance to discuss that and have people from the public and from the library who are concerned about the library board and on it discuss that at the meeting when that resolution comes up. So we would not be, banging the gavel tonight, so to speak.
Okay, that would be great.
It might be a good idea for the various changes that we're suggesting to be separate resolutions so that we can easily choose ones to pass and decide perhaps not to pass others.
Exactly. That's why I was trying to make sure we go through, not just move on to the resolution for the art, what's in front of us, but to make sure we take each one of them at a time so we're not overwhelming staff.
I hope we'll go forward with the arts one tonight.
Yeah, I do too.
Timely and it's ripe.
And I just want to make a comment about the library board. You know, that was my first appointment, was to serve on that board. You know, you get a lot of information. You're working with the county, but it was great to hear from staff what was going on in the library. So community involvement is key. You know, how to spend the money. How can we make the library more inviting for more, you know, patrons to come into the library? So as we move this along, just remember that, you know, when you're going to the library, the usefulness, how we can be more engaged. Again, it's all about making this appointment on this board more inviting, getting the community involved. How do we do that? By communicating with them. So that's just my take on the library board. And if anyone else have anything, we can move to the next.
May I just add a comment with regard to our engagement with the county and the public library system? Should that committee be sunsetted, there are absolutely continued opportunities for the public to remain engaged, and that would be reports by the county library system to the city council on a periodic basis, perhaps as part of the contract approval that's an administrative item on a regular basis. The county also has public meetings and opportunities to get engaged as well. So I think that we could still sustain those public engagement opportunities. They would probably just be at different levels.
That's true. Maybe, you know, we can think about having a representative or two, an alternate, just to attend those county meetings so they can report to us. I mean, I think we have that now. Maybe we can increase that if we want to, you know, do something different with the board. But again, we can table this, get a resolution presented, and invite the public to comment on the importance of having this library board. All right. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Next on the list. So there's a number of advisory bodies that have council as a whole appointments, also known as council at large. And about 10 years ago or so, the council did away with most of those because it was found that having those seats when there was a contentious issue actually increased the contention. Because if you have a 7-member body with 5 of the members appointed by a majority of the council and its perspective, then the minority of the body gets more marginalized. So it magnified the majority's power in a way that was undemocratic and unproductive. And so the council, after a couple of experiences like that on a couple of bodies so constituted, took the decision to eliminate those seats. Rather than eliminate those seats, my suggestion would be that if more than 5 people are needed on a body, that the Board of Education appoint them if there's any reasonable nexus there. And I'm not making this proposal to change our process mid-flight for appointing council as a whole appointees. You know, I think we should go forward with that because we need to fill those bodies now. But that we set that in motion for 2 years from now so that we don't leave this potential structural problem to crop up again should there be some substantial controversial issue that arises that one of the advisory bodies that is formed in such a manner has to take up.
Councilmember Tiedemann. Thank you, Mayor. Vice Mayor Jordan.
I would agree, especially I was going to raise this specifically in regards to the SEJC. I think at least one of those at-large seats could be transferred to the Board of Education for appointment in the future, and perhaps both of them.
Thank you, Councilmember Tiedemann. Councilmember McQuaid.
Thank you. I have a little different opinion on this. I've always been really curious as to why the Board of Education has seats on our advisory bodies. I've never felt that the school district really bought into that, into seating people. I'm not quite sure what their process is. I've asked them a few times, and I usually hear I don't know. So, I just wonder. We don't have seats on any of their committees. I just wonder why they have seats on ours. And I think this is a discussion that's maybe worth having. What is the nexus between the two bodies?
Thank you, Councilmember McQuaid. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Does the Board of Education have any standing advisory bodies in the way that the city does? Just out of curiosity, I'm not aware of it, but they may.
I think, well, the one I think of is like their tax measure bond oversight committees.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think Councilmember Seaton's idea for social and economic justice, which I think there is a strong nexus, at least for that body, given that the school district and the schools are very much a part of whether the city is equitable and just or not. And it sparked that one of those two seats has not been filled by the council yet. So it's an opportunity to make that one seat available to the Board of Education. That is something we can discuss, not in the decision-making mode, but in an exploration mode a week from today in the 2x2x2 meeting. So there is an upcoming opportunity to at least see if the president and vice president, what their thoughts are on it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Councilmember Tiedemann.
I would also say there's a nexus on a fair amount of these, as well as it's valuable just to get a different view, to get the people that the Board of Education might recruit, to get them involved in, we have, our committees are necessarily, I think, wider in scope than a lot of the committees would be for the Board of Education, but are still very much of interest to them. And they are, the only other elected at large for the whole city body in the city. So getting their input on any of these, I think, is a good thing, especially as I haven't analyzed all of their appointments, but I'd imagine there's a higher chance that they would recruit and appoint someone who might be in our school system or might be a parent from our school system, which I think is valuable to have that on some of these bodies. As far as the nexus goes, I think for your arts committee, a lot of our public artwork is going to go up near or on schools. I'm thinking of the waves over at Ocean View. For the Climate Action Committee, I think previously that has been a youth representative that the board has appointed, and maybe this time of someone in high school, which I think is a good view to have on that committee. Community Media Access Committee, I think they have appointments partly because those are appointed our students a lot of the time and get good experience working in the city and have time to work on something as part of a class, I think. Parks, Recreation, Open Space, I think there's an obvious nexus because so much open space is around schools and part of it is used for school activities. So I think there's a lot of use in having those appointed representation from the board on there.
Thank you, Councilmember Tiedemann. Councilmember McQuaid.
Nicole, could you address how they appoint people? You may have a better handle on this than I do.
It's varied from year to year over different administrations and the elected officials on the board at any given time. Something I know that is done each time there is an appointment needed is that our city staff sends the remaining applications to the school district staff for use in selecting applicants. In terms of exactly how the applicants are selected, I'm not sure. I know that they do go on a Board of Education agenda for action. Specific to the Climate Action Committee, there is language in the originating resolutions for that committee that the appointee be a student. And so that's another specific qualifier that the council could apply if so desired.
I think it's good to have students. I'm just not sure they have to be appointed by the school board.
Thank you, Councilmember McQuaid. Vice Mayor Jordan.
I guess I'd be curious response to the structural problem I laid out. Having those members appointed by Board of Education is just one solution. At the time that the council eliminated these councils of whole seats, that there was a lot of thinking around what other solutions could there be in terms of how this body makes appointments to maintain balance, and there was no solution found. But I'm certainly open to hearing other solutions. But the first step is, is there agreement that there's a structural problem with having essentially 3 members of the council able to appoint 5 members of the body?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Is there any further discussion? Vice Mayor Jordan?
Well, if there's no further discussion, I would like to put on the table for consideration and possible consent, exploring the Board of Education making the second appointment to the as a whole or at large seat, as it were, on Social and Economic Justice Commission.
If that is a motion, I will second it.
I'll make it a motion. Thanks.
All right. We'll go ahead and take it to a vote.
Councilmember McQuaid,
Yes.
Councilmember Nason,
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
And when is that effective?
If I may, I'd like to produce a resolution to formalize that at your next meeting.
That would be great.
We have one already appointed, right? Do we only have one appointed?
Yes, to the at-large seats, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So would we leave that as it is? Since we've already taken action?
Yeah.
My understanding was you were changing one seat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
You're changing one seat, one of the at-large seats to appointed by Board of Education, and that seat's currently vacant, so it works.
Okay, so then going forward, we'd have one appointed by council and one appointed by the board. Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what we're doing.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes, in working with potential applicants to the Financial Advisory Committee, one potential applicant was suggested to me, and she had some interest, but she asked if she could meet with the finance director first, and it was a very interesting meeting. This particular applicant is a retired assistant director of the GAO, the federal agency, which has financial oversight, so pretty massive experience base. And she looked on her own volition. She looked at the enabling resolution for that body and quickly came to the conclusion that his charge is probably wider than is feasible for the number of times it's going to meet and the amount of work volunteers would do. So, and Heather Rowden, the financial director, had some agreement on that. Thought that now that it was a little clearer what that body might usefully do to help the council, help the city, that there might be some value in revisiting that resolution. So I don't have a particular proposal, but I just wanted to put it on the table because it's quite a list of items that's in this resolution. Some of which she said if a body of people was to due diligence would take far longer than they would have as volunteers on a committee such as this. So that might be something to bookmark and take up with Heather.
I would agree. Anyone? Councilmember Nason? Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Although I think that the idea is to have a wide, like social and economic justice. Think of how many things you could do to advance social and economic justice. The idea here would be that the committee itself would consider what it can do, what it should do, and come up with a work plan. And the council would give direction to the committee on what its priorities would be. And it's a process that works from both sides, and you narrow it down. But I do agree. I mean, the need for financial oversight is very great. And, there's just too much to it for any 5 volunteers to cover. But I think we can assure our applicants that indeed they will have the opportunity to propose a scope of work to the council that will be prioritized, and they will not be expected to handle all of those potential areas of oversight.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, that suggests a way forward that might work out, which is as the charge to the body, since it's a new body, that let it know that one of the things it can do is consider that resolution and make recommendations on changes that it sees would better fit. So I think the resolution now is directive rather than permissive in many ways. So it might be that some of the items are directive. This is the body will do this, and converting some of those other items to permissive, the body can do this. Might be helpful, and letting the body actually parse those into different lists and come back to us would be a great way to go, and respectful of our getting going.
Is there any other discussion regarding this advisory committee? All right. Anyone else have anything they want to bring up before we move to this resolution? Vice Mayor Jordan.
This is a item of terms which I tend to nitpick on, so take that with a grain of salt. But council at large isn't really a term. We're not a body of geographic entities. The term that you'll typically find in parliamentary procedures is as a whole. So council as a whole, and I think as we've heard earlier, there's confusion around what council at large actually means. I think council as a whole is a bit clearer. I don't know if it's entirely clear, but I think it heads in the right direction. So I would ask that the terminology be changed from council at large to council as a whole to refer to those seats.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Councilmember Nason?
Yeah, before we wrap up, I did want to touch on a few things that were raised by members of the public. Starting with Judy Kerr commented about the finance committee looking at the comprehensive annual financial report before it came to the council. And I wanted to say, I think in a more perfect world, we would receive that document, it would be produced on schedule at the end of December. It would go out to the finance committee and to the council, and the finance committee could and would meet to discuss it before the council does. In the particular circumstances that we're in, though, where we've not had such a document in a very long time, and we're overdue, I think that we should get it just as soon as it's done, and perhaps revisit that kind of order perhaps next year. And then I wanted to touch on Carol Fitzgerald wrote us a message, the chair of Friends of Albany Hill, about the possibility of dividing the duties of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee into two committees. And I just wanted to acknowledge that suggestion had been made, but we would want to hear, I think that the appropriate thing here would be to bring that proposal to the committee itself and see if the committee has an interest. My own preference, I lean towards keeping them together and perhaps having subcommittees or task forces if the workload is too great. But I did want to acknowledge that suggestion had been made. And finally, on the Arts Committee, I wanted to clarify something. There was a public comment that perhaps we were expanding the pool of available applicants for the, and thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan, for the council as a whole appointment. that by making it possible for a person who is a member of the business community but doesn't live here to apply, and that it was not to expand the pool, but to increase the likelihood that we would be able to get input from the business community, because the arts community is very much involved in something that affects the physical appearance of our business districts. We would very much like to have a member of the business community be part of that. So that was the intention, more than to expand the pool, to be able to have more applicants. And that's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. I just want, for clarity, let's go back to what you stated as far as the Financial Advisory Committee. So you're suggesting that due to us not having the audit information that we have available, that we should wait a year before the advisory committee?
No.
Okay, so
I'm
get
just
clarity.
saying we should not delay receipt. I would like us to receive the comprehensive annual financial report at the earliest possible date, and not wait for it to be reviewed by the Finance Committee. I think that both the Council and the Finance Committee should receive it as soon as it's ready.
Okay. Councilmember McQuaid?
Thank you. Regarding the idea about having an open space committee and a park commission, I would suggest that we wait until after the master plan and sort of revisit that at that point and see what might come out of that.
Yeah.
And for the arts committee, I think adding somebody from the business community is a good idea. I'm trying to think about how to frame that as we're looking for applicants. First of all, are we going to send something out through the business association saying that we're looking for applicants? Because if it doesn't have to be someone who lives in Albany, it's a change, which is fine, but people don't really know that possibility exists.
I think we do need to recirculate it because we're changing the qualifications. Yeah.
And also, do we want it to be someone with an art connection or anybody who has a business in Albany? Because I don't know, but I think that's something we might want to think about a little bit. And we want to be sure that there's no conflict of interest, that if somebody has a great idea and all of a sudden it would really benefit their business, and we go, oh, well, you can't participate because of your business, or even convert. We don't want to penalize somebody's business because they're on the arts committee. So I think we just need to kind of think about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's safe to go forward with broadening it and recirculating it, and then taking a look at those things when we have our pool of applicants, if that makes sense.
I think that's fine. I think we should just at least have it in the back of our head to think about.
Yeah, very good points.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, my understanding from the resolution is this allows us to appoint somebody who lives outside of Albany and is involved in the business community. It doesn't require it though. So it expands the pool, but it's not a requirement, unlike I think some of the other councils. The whole seats are really, as was alluded to earlier, specifically reserved for students, for instance, or on the case of the Economic Development Committee, reserved for the Solano Valley Association representative and Chamber of Commerce representative. I'm a little worried that it may not broaden it that much, because I don't know what the Venn diagram is between business owner and somebody who really has qualifications in the art world. So I'm a little nervous about framing it as business owner, that it's going to be taken as, well, I'm a business owner, so I can't, I'm qualified because I'm a business owner. It's not just being a business owner. And I don't know how many business owners really actually have qualifications in the art world. And I think we could stand with qualified applicants. So I'm actually, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about this, or at least the business owner part. I mean, I almost think it would be useful to open it up more broadly and not require a business owner, but say, we could stand to have one member who, if for some reason they're interested in Albany, and they have art qualifications, that they can serve on this body to help us out.
That could get scary, having no, I think that having some substantial connection to Albany is important. If we started getting applicants from Berkeley and Richmond who had broader agendas, I could just see that becoming kind of unmanageable very quickly.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
I think a lot of what we're discussing comes down to our responsibility when we're assessing this application for, how strong of a connection we think they have and what their bona fides are when it comes to art. But I will point out that the resolution doesn't make any requirements. It just says whenever possible, represent the business community and have experience in the field of art. So there's no requirement that they be a business owner or that they have requirements for it. That is wholly on us, is our responsibility to assess the applicants, which I have full confidence in us to do. And I think we can keep all these issues in mind when we do so.
I agree. Very well. Councilmember McQuaid?
And there's one last thing we haven't covered yet, and that's the if we want to add language, if somebody has to leave a commission or committee or board before the end of their 2-year term. And I would just suggest we follow the language out of the work plan, which simply says no changes can be made after November 1st in the 2nd year of the term.
So I want to go back to the Arts Committee before we move forward. Are we in agreement with this resolution? Because we're moving from one to one and not really giving clear direction. We just discussed the Art Committee, and I want to make sure that we have clear understanding if we agree with this resolution, if there's something we need to change before we go to the next item.
That kind of sounds like a call for a motion, so I'll move.
Sounds like it.
That we pass resolution 2021-01.
I'll second.
All right, let's take it to a vote.
I think you've got a hand up, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Tiedemann, go ahead.
If we are done with discussion, I'd like to move to other motions to encapsulate some of the other things we've talked about so we can vote on them all together.
Right. So on the arts, or what are you
on everything else we've discussed, assuming that we have no more discussion on anything on this item.
No, we still haven't.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, Councilmember McQuaid did bring up something, but let's get the Arts Committee
Cool, yeah.
resolution. Let's get that voted on, and then we'll move to Councilmember McQuaid's suggestions, and then we can go back into a vote on everything else that you want to bring forward. Okay. All right, Ann, please.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Did you guys discuss the council at large to change to council as a whole?
Oh, that's right. That's on this
I
resolution.
assume that I would have to modify
That.
the resolution.
I
And
will amend my motion
Okay.
to pass the resolution with that change from council at large to council as a whole. And the motion doesn't have a second, by the way, so we're still just discussing it.
So I'll second it.
Oh, I meant to second it.
I thought I heard you second it, but that's fine. Councilmember McQuaid, go ahead with the vote.
And I'm sorry, and one last thing, did the include a representative from the business community change?
No.
Okay. Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Mayor Gary?
Yes. All right, Councilmember McQuaid, you want to go ahead and bring up for discussion?
I'm sorry, the language.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to repeat it?
Please.
Okay. May I make a motion?
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I move that we adopt language in the work plan amendment, or I'm sorry, scratch that, don't listen to that. I move that we have a statement stating no changes can be made after November 1st in the second year of a term of an advisory body.
Seconded.
You might want to clean that up a little bit, but you got the idea.
Yeah, so when, okay, Vice Mayor Jordan, can I say it?
Sure, yes, sorry.
I think we need to elaborate more on as far as like changes. You know, life happens, things happen. Can we just elaborate more on when you're saying that no changes can be made? Do we want to say, you know, based on XYZ, these conditions, or it's just no changes at all?
No, I think no changes to an advisory body because it's the last month of their term. Why they had to resign is really immaterial. The fact is you don't want to appoint somebody for one meeting.
But what about if you lose a quorum and the committee can't meet?
Right.
We need to, and we almost had that, I think, with the
Arts Committee.
Arts Committee. We had 2 people resign at the end of the year.
Right.
It could become a challenge. I'd rather we kept our flexibility and assumed that we can cross that bridge when we come to it, and we can.
I mean, because we don't want to have something that's trying to move forward to be presented to the council member and it just absolutely drops because we're waiting on the next appointment to come in and pick it up. I mean, I think we should do it case by case. Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
I'll second the motion because I'm keeping in mind that this would be in the context of an election having occurred and potentially new council members coming in. And so to have appointed somebody for one meeting before new council members come in is potentially quite awkward. So I think it is better to leave them vacant at that point in time. And if the body can't meet for December, I really don't think that's going to be the end of the world.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll bring it up to a vote. We got our motions. Dan?
Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
This is just on this timing issue. I'll vote no.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Mayor Gary?
No.
Motion carries.
All right, Councilmember Tiedemann?
Unless anyone has new discussion items to bring up on this topic, I wanted to bring us back. We never did a motion on directing staff to bring back a resolution sunsetting the library board. So I would like to move that motion.
I'll second it.
Well, okay. Go ahead. All right, let's go ahead and bring it to a vote.
Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
I'm going to abstain just because I don't feel like I know enough about the library board right now to say anything one way or the other. Thanks.
And if I can jump in, I'm sorry. I thought we had agreed to, wait until we have more information before we sunset this. I mean, is that not what I heard? Councilmember Tiedemann?
My understanding was that, this motion is directing us to have the resolution ready, and then this will be a specifically agendized resolution on the meeting this is a part of, at which point it will have plenty of discussion from anyone who's interested.
Okay. All right.
Okay, if that's the intention, it's just having this be an available option and not, and that staff understands and the public understands, we have not come to a consensus on this yet, and we'll be looking at it with fresh eyes. Then I'm fine with it. I'm a yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Tiedemann?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Mayor Gary?
Yes.
Motion carries.
right, Vice Mayor Jordan?
Is a motion needed to transition terminology from council at large to council as a whole, or we just do that by consensus?
But then we just, no.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's my preference. All right, thanks.
All right, any further discussion on any item? All right, we'll go ahead and move to 12.2. We'll get a staff report.
Just a minute.
Unmute. Thank you for your patience. Yes, this is the second on your three-part agenda here for a update on the currently adopted City Council strategic plan. As a reminder, this is a strategic plan as adopted by the City Council to date that runs the period of time from July 2019 through June 2021. As part of the language in that strategic plan, staff is responsible for providing updates on status towards achieving the goals set out and the objectives set out in said strategic plan. You have a two-part agenda item on this specific item this evening. Our Assistant City Manager, Isabel Leduc, will provide a fairly concise overview of status to date and allow mostly for questions from the staff to answer if the council has anything specific in nature with regard to particular implementation status. I should, as usual, put a caveat on that given the unexpected nature of the pandemic, some of our status has been limited in certain areas. However, we've done some major work overall in terms of achieving success through a robust strategic plan. The second part of your agenda, again, this is ideally a preliminary discussion by the council. However, any direction would be incredibly helpful to staff as we work to envisioning your next iteration of a strategic plan and what that looks like to this current council. Again, as stated, the current plan runs through June 2021. We would certainly like to make some headway into some sort of planning endeavor months prior to the anticipated expiration date of your current plan. And included in your staff report, we have a handful of questions that may be, again, helpful for the council to consider in terms of what your preferred format for that next strategic plan would look like, and really how you'd like to see it administered, whether it's through a professional consulting group, a planning group, whatnot. But let me give the virtual mic over to Isabel to first give you an update on the currently adopted strategic plan, and then we can return to looking towards the future.
Thank you, Nicole. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. As Nicole mentioned, the first part of this agenda item is to receive a status update regarding the implementation of the current City Council strategic plan, which covers the period of July 2019 through June 2021. Staff has been working towards implementation of the City Council strategic plan and is available to answer questions or clarifying questions from the council. So the strategic plan consists of 5 goals supported by objectives and associated work plan items. And okay, thank you, Anne, for sharing. And so for the purpose of this broad overview, I will go over the goals and associated objectives, and and I would like to take comments and clarifying questions on objectives if the council has any. So to start with, the first goal is to foster a healthy and sustainable urban village. And the first objective was to advance climate action. So I'd like, does council have any questions on or comments on the 2 work plan items? And the two potential work plan additions. You'll see that there's a status and there's information in the column for status comments for all items.
Just that I think the work plan additions are terrific. Developing the master plan for the urban forest is kind of crucial, and I would say that the gas-powered leaf blowers is one of the most common complaints that I get as a council member. I hear it all the time. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, I had more of a process question for sort of the level of council discussion, what's helpful. There's 62 different items at the work plan level, and I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about each one individually. I don't know if that is the desire. I can certainly do that, but I think we could probably be here till midnight if we go that route. What I was prepared to talk more about was sort of general framing of strategic plan going forward, what the strategic plan has been, how this council, if it wants to continue in that vein or make some adjustments. But again, I don't really know what it was hoped to get out of this and what process we might undertake to be efficient.
Right. So I think what you're speaking to is part of the second part of this item, when you'll engage in a conversation about your future strategic plan. So this item that I'm going over with you is just a broad overview and just to kind of see if you have any questions or specific comments to the current strategic plan. Does that work? Okay. And I don't intend to go over each item. I'm just going over each objectives and then, asking if council has questions or comments, and it can move quickly or not depending on, comments and questions received. Okay, so we'll move on to objective number 2, which was to promote housing availability and quality. There are 4 work plan items under this objective. Does the council have any questions or comments? Okay. And the third objective was to promote active transportation and safety. And I think there's a number of work plan items. I see 3, and there's a few potential work plan items as well. Yes, Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, so following on Councilmember Nason's previous comment, I don't know if we're commenting on whether the potential work plan items should become items in the next strategic plan or whether they should stay in. Not all the work plan items have been completed and some of the additional work plan items have been completed, so it's kind of a mixed bag. But I will offer, at least on this, the third work plan item is really 3 items in itself. So to the extent it carries forward, I think it would make more sense to divide it up. Because it's kind of a cheat the way it's stated. That's quite a heavy lift of an item with all 3 of those packaged together, and I think each of them requires a different approach and different thinking.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to objective number 4, support public health and safety. And we had 5 work plan items under this objective. Does the council have any questions or comments? Yes, Vice Mayor Jordan.
So this is a point of history for me as a new council member. I imagine there's some motivating event or motivating thought behind the item number 4 regarding social host laws. And I would help me to consider that item if I had a little bit of history around what it is and why it's there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And now we move on to goal number 2, which was to engage our diverse community. And objective number 1 is to connect with and engage community. Yes, Vice Mayor Jordan.
So on work plan item 2, if that continues, and I certainly think it should continue, whether it's a strategic plan item or a work plan item for SEJC, I think it should set metric targets rather than establishing as the goal the means to the end rather than the end itself. The end itself is that a certain percentage of households with low incomes in any given year, as based on census data or whatever other data, is actually availing themselves of these provisions. And so I want to see targets in here rather than the means, which is where the city's going to publicize it more, and we don't look at whether that's effective or not.
Okay, thank you. So we also have objective number 2, which is to promote disaster preparedness and resiliency, 2 work plan items, and a few potential work plan additions. Any comments or questions on those items? Yes.
I mean, to monopolize here. Anybody else jump in if you want. So this is an example where, you know, in my potential ignorance, again, as a new member, the potential work plan additions have been accomplished to some large degree. I mean, it may not be perfect, but we never reached perfection. So even though they were potential work plan additions, they've actually been worked on and implemented. So that's why I say it's sort of, it's a little bit confusing to me going through this. And there's certainly many of these that I would want to see deleted, either because they've been accomplished or just because I don't support the work that they propose, and I'm not detailing those. So I don't know what mechanism we'd ultimately have for that, but I get the sense this is the beginning of a long process. So.
Yes, and I think that's you'll get to discuss this as part of the second item of this agenda item as well.
Hey, Isabel, I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but just like for number 1, where it says investigate available forms of communication with public for public safety, you go into the status and comments, and it said began using AC Alert on November 15, 2019. Is there a section that can give me the outcomes? Was that a success? What the public gain from that? Just additional information on implementing this.
I'm thinking that probably the data that would be available is the number of AC alerts that was that was conducted. I'd have to find out more about the program to know if there's any more data available on this mechanism. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for presenting this to us, by the way. I think the data that might be also responsive to Mary Gary's suggestion is the number of phone numbers that are based in Albany, to the extent that's possible to figure out. And I don't know if it is. They've actually signed up for AC Alert.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and so I think it's just a matter of, like, as we get ready to prepare to move into our strategic plan, you know, is this working? I mean, it would just be, for me, I would like to see something more robust in the fact that, you know, do we want to remove this because we haven't received the results that we expected when we first came up with this plan? So that's just generally what I'm saying is that, if it hasn't, what can we do different? I mean, implementing different options or another way to reach out to the community in this sense. I think that's just as a whole in this planning, we need to make sure we have the pros, the cons, if we're going to keep it, if we're not, why and why not. That way the public can clearly understand why this isn't working and why we're choosing to do something. Just as an example.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there are no other comments on this section, we'll move on to objective number 3, which was to continue to promote community inclusivity. And there are 3 work plan items. Any questions or comment on those? Okay, we'll move on to objective number 4, promote health and wellness. I think, is that the only work plan item, Anne, under this one? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we'll move on to the next goal.
Can you go back down to the promote? The health and wellness, there again, what does that look like? We promoted it how? What were the results of that promotion as far as the sugars sweetened tax? Now we've been in COVID, were there changes implemented, right? Because of, businesses not running at capacity. Just a few suggestions. We're not at the gyms. We're limited to parking space. So, what were some of the changes or implementations that was needed to utilize this tax this year, or was it, So just additional information to help us kind of wrap our head around where we want to go next with this tax.
Okay. And for this tax, just for the council members who may not have gone through one full, 1 year of the process, you will be having a sugar sweetened beverage tax work session in April, and where we will provide you with the information on the programs that have been funded by the tax, and then you'll also receive some recommendations from different advisory boards and members of the public for the expenditure of future tax dollars. So the next goal is to maximize and improve parks and open space. And the first objective is to enhance parks. And there are 4 work plan items under this objective. Does the council have any questions or comment? Yes, Councilmember Nason?
Yes, the plan for improvements to the Albany Waterfront Park, I couldn't find anything like that, and I don't recall anything like that. All I recall is we had the transition study, which is supposed to be a jumping off point for developing a plan, and we were going to look at whether to take the next. I think that the idea was to get traction with the East Bay Regional Park District to work together on a plan that both entities thought would work. But this is a reference to that a plan was developed and submitted, and I don't. That doesn't ring any bells with me. And I couldn't find it. It said it was submitted in June of 2019, and I couldn't find it.
I'd be happy to produce that document. It was actually developed as part of the subcommittee on waterfront. It was a list of shorter term improvements with the understanding that the transition plan wasn't going to be carried out.
Okay, it was that chart.
Yeah.
I do recall the chart.
Plan probably isn't the right word here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that now just knowing what you're talking about helps. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next objective, which is to enhance open space. And we have 7 objectives, work plan items. Any questions or comments from the council on those items? Okay, then we'll move on to the next objective, which is to create cultural facilities and opportunities. There are 2 work plan items and 1 potential work plan addition. Okay, moving on to the next goal is to advance economic development and the arts. And the first objective is to encourage economic development with a variety of businesses and development models. And there are 3 work plan items.
I do have a question on this theme. It's not obvious to me on the face of it that economic development and the arts go together. I mean, they can go together, but they can also be separate. So just a comment, I guess, to contemplate for the future when we set up the next plan. I think it implies something about the arts and it implies something about economic development. I mean, it makes sense, say, if in the context of Berkeley downtown, they established an arts district, you know, where they were gonna focus on supporting arts-related businesses. In that sense, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense as just kind of an implication overall.
Okay, thank you.
So with the surveys that went out, after that information was received to the staff, what were the next steps? Like, can you elaborate more on that? What was the outcome of those surveys? We had one in March and we had one in the summer.
I think, does Jeff have information on the survey?
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, council members. Those surveys were reported to the Economic Development Committee. And we also use them to kind of help guide the you know, what we were focusing on as staff people.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. And then objective number 2 was to investigate ways to support and develop the arts. And there's 1 work plan item. And then the last objective under this, I think, yes, is to maintain an attractive atmosphere in business districts. Yes, Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, I think the encroachments in public right-of-way or onto city property isn't really specific to the business district. That's really an item that obtains throughout the city, and I think really more typically outside of business districts.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last goal was to facilitate government accountability. And objective 1, sound and transparent management of city financial resources. And we have 5 work plan items under this objective. And then objective, the next objective, no, this is the same one. But it's a potential work plan addition. Okay, if there are no questions, we'll move on to objective number 2, which is to enhance communication and transparency programs. And the last objective is to assure rates of revenue sources are kept current, that revenues are collected, and Albany is informed of funding mechanisms in use in other California cities. And you have one work plan item and a potential work plan addition. Okay, well, if there are no more comments or questions, this concludes the overview of this current strategic plan. I'll pass the virtual mic back over to Nicole so she can talk to you about the second item.
Thank you, Isabel. I heard a couple of comments from the council in terms of the content you just reviewed. I should note that while this is a standing strategic plan, if there's an item in there that the council, the majority of the council, would like to direct staff not to pursue, we would certainly welcome knowing that before we conceivably waste resources on something that is not a priority for the council, given that the strategic plan is above and beyond our day-to-day obligations and regulatory mandated requirements anyway. So I would welcome the opportunity for that to be raised. And then I would also welcome any direction that the council would like to give on what you'd like to see, just kind of your framework, conceptual ideas for your next iteration of a strategic plan. And the reason I ask that now is, should the council wish to retain the services of a consulting group? There are, many experts in the field on this type of sort of conversational strategic planning work. We've used a couple in the past, in kind of the distant past at this point in time, but that will take some preliminary work, administrative work by staff to develop that request for proposals and whatnot. So that direction would be helpful to have when the council's ready to deliberate on that.
Councilmember Nason.
One that struck me right away as being deferrable was the study session on establishing mandatory campaign finance limits. Until we're done with a plan to implement Measure BB, we're not going to know whether whether people need to campaign in a quarter of the city or 20% of the city or 100% of the city. So trying to figure that out seems like a low priority. And someone asked about the social host law, and if I recall correctly, that may have been requested by the police department in response to some party house nightmare situation or something. Is that still considered a priority? That seems like something we could possibly pass over unless the police department feels it's needed, still needed.
I'm looking at you, Councilmember McQuaid. I think this one was originally raised at your discretion to the council to incorporate into the strategic plan. Clearly, the police department hasn't had the capacity to create content for the council to consider on this. Certainly that would be with support from city manager's office as well. But given that you haven't seen anything yet, speaks to the concept that it isn't necessarily critical or one of the things that's pressing at the staff experience at this time.
I think that's true. I do kind of have a process question though. I mean, I'm fine to take that out. Where I'm a little bit confused is where the line is between what we're removing from the current strategic plan and what we're going to either put in or not put in a plan that starts in July. I don't have any strong feelings on this one at either time, but I'm just kind of curious about how this process is working.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Jordan, and then I'll speak.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't really, I didn't prepare to answer that particular question. I apologize to staff of what could be deferred or taken out at this time. I sort of, this goes to some other questions I have about the timing of the strategic plan versus other plans. You know, there's a pretty strong nexus between the strategic plan and the work plans the body set up. You know, my understanding of the strategic plan is it's following the fiscal year, and so it would be adopted actually after the work plans in all likelihood come to us for approval, whereas it seems like the work plans should come to us after the strategic plan. So I sort of just taking the strategic plan the way it is, and then it's gonna, you know, it's gonna run to the end of its duration. As a general principle, it's not great to have policy direction change mid-flight, because that just, you know, risks wasting resources. Although I understand what you're saying, you know, it can waste resources to try to implement things that haven't even been started yet. But I'm really more interested in the sort of meta conversation around the utility of a strategic plan. But I guess we'll get to that.
Councilmember Nason?
I think even if for the duration of this strategic plan, it would be helpful to the staff to identify things that we are just not interested collectively in pursuing, or that have been, the Army Corps engineers use the phrase OBE, meaning it's been overtaken by events. You know, so if there are things that we're just not interested in anymore, or they've been overtaken by events, I think it seems to me it could be helpful to the staff to know, well, that's just not something that the current council is terribly interested in going after. So that was my, that's what I was thinking on, like the campaign finance, kind of like, not, you know, let's get BB taken care of, and then let's figure out how we want campaign finance to work. And there are others that are kind of along those lines. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I can offer in that vein. It doesn't seem like work has started on revisiting the electronic billboard concept, which consumed, from my perspective, and I wasn't deeply involved by any means, I was a bystander, it seemed to consume, you know, an appreciable amount of council time at the time it was considered. I don't, unless staff has a compelling reason, or somebody has a compelling reason why that should be revisited just a couple of years later or a few years later, I don't have any interest in staff working on that.
Yeah, I'd kind of put cannabis in the same category. We've kicked it around. We've spent a lot of time and effort, you know, investigating it. And unless somebody here feels like, you know, we got to put this forward and deal with it, I think we can just say, okay, for the foreseeable, for this 2-year, you know, period or whatever, we're probably not going to circle back to that.
Well,
Mayor McQuaid, hold on, Mayor, Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead. Vice Member McQuaid, go ahead.
Thank you. I would somewhat disagree with Vice Mayor Jordan on the electronic billboard, not necessarily as its first iteration, but I think as we talk about communication, to have perhaps some kind of an electronic sign, maybe at somewhere at City Hall, might be valuable to people that driving by, they see there's something happening, they might be interested. I think that's still an electronic billboard, so that would come under that. So I'd like to leave that there, at least for that piece. I do agree with Councilmember Nason that we could remove the cannabis at this point, come back to it in 2 years or whatever.
Thank you, Councilmember McQuaid. Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yeah, I'm thoroughly confused. I don't know if we're talking about, because this strategic plan goes through June or July, is my understanding. We're not making decisions now about the next 2 years. So, and on the electronic billboard, I took that in the context of a commercial billboard. And so I may have understood what was meant by that. And if it was meant to be an informational electronic billboard for the community, I still have some questions about that, but it at least should be clarified what is intended by those words in the strategic plan. And if the members who've been here when the strategic plan was developed could enlighten me as to which of those interpretations of that was the one that was in mind, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that seems important. Here's a suggestion. I think I'm going on the assumption we're going to have a strategic plan that looks kind of like this one. That we all liked the look when it was done. This was a switch from an Excel-based chart that was not very user-friendly. And I think we all felt like this was a pretty good advance. And so I'm kind of going on the assumption, okay, it's only been through one cycle. We can certainly use this format and this approach for another cycle. And I see no reason we couldn't use this framework to start with. Start chopping off the things that can be chopped and updating the ones that can be updated, and then talking about the additions that the pressing additions that we see need to be made. So I'm going on that assumption. And there may be others who think, no, what we need to hire a consultant and do a zero-based strategic plan and put a lot of time and energy into it. So people may feel differently from how I'm looking at it. But I just wanted to lay that on the table as I'm making my comments. That's kind of the framework that I have in my head.
Thank you, Councilmember Nathan. Anyone else? Any council member? No, I do like the. Oh, go ahead, Vice Mayor Jordan. No, go ahead. Okay, thank you. It seems like every time I talk, somebody's like, "No, I want a chance." Just messing with you. I do like the framework. My concern is that I would like to see timelines moving forward. More meat in the plan. So basically, again, it shows kind of like the pros and cons, where we're at, the next steps, how we can move the strategic plan along. Just simply looking at the plan, and the words, we did this, we did that, this was implemented. I would like to hear more of the outcome. What were the results on that? Do we want to continue to move that forward? Then that will help us eliminate, what can be removed from the strategic plan, so staff will no longer have to waste their time. So that's just my opinion. I think it just needs to be more meatier in our framework and make it more robust to where, we get clear understanding to staff and for us so we can move forward on this plan. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Well, I want to jump into the meta because that kind of seems like where we're headed. But I am noting there is a member of the public who has their hands raised, and so at some point might want to let them have their piece.
I understand. Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Does anyone else want to bring anything out before we let the member of the public in? Councilmember Tiedemann, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, because I don't have a ton to say about the framework and the specific points in this plan so far, but I do want to establish, because it seems like we have a lot to say about our next plan. Do we have an idea when we'll be discussing the next plan and drafting it up and diving really deeply into what we want to prioritize for the next 2 years and what the big issues are for this council?
Right, and I think we need to determine whether we want to keep this strategic plan or, do something new altogether, or possibly use a consultant. That's something we need to try to, hone in on, I believe, in this meeting. If we use a consultant, that'll free up some staff time. That way they can work on some of the low-hanging fruit, some of the issues that are affecting our city right now. So I think we need to take that in consideration as well.
Right, but what I mean is, what I'm asking is, do we have anything on their calendar for when this is going to come back to discuss, the more so than the framework that we're discussing now, the, issues that and the construction of the next specific plan? Like, is that on our calendar in the future? Is that part of our something in the future? Is that part of a future agenda currently?
We've typically had a work session, a study. We don't call it a retreat. We used to call it a retreat, and then we realized, that's not really an appropriate term for a public body's deliberations. But we have a block of time set aside to work on the strategic plan. I think that what we're, kicking around right now is, do we give the staff direction to kind of plan for a very similar format and framework of the strategic plan, or do we want to start off kind of zero-based with a new consultant? And I think personally the most efficient thing to do to a successful outcome is to stick with this framework, because the staff is familiar with it. We've been through it in the past, and treat it as something that we change rather than starting over.
Okay. All right, well, let's take a break. Let's go to the member of the public, and then let's bring it back to council member as we continue to deliberate on this issue. Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, thank you, it's Jeremiah. Yeah, I like the fact that we're going to get around to, cleaning some sort of the garbage cans on Solano Avenue. I did put a work order in to Public Works. They're supposed to take out the trash can liners and power wash them, but still the inside of the garbage can itself, the big belly, they're still really filthy, and somehow the metal framing of the inside needs to be cleaned and sanitized. I've opened the door, pulled out the liner, and still inside is absolutely disgusting. I mean, there's mold growing, and I don't know what's going on in those things. But I'm glad that's on a plan. That's great. Also, would it be a good idea to somehow incorporate the restaurants on Solano to stop serving us unhealthy food, like GMO ingredients, things that aren't organic? Would it be a good idea to incorporate restaurants on Solano to where restaurants served us healthier options, non-GMO foods and organic stuff? You could just work on eating healthier at our local businesses. I mean, I could just, for example, let's say a restaurant serves genetically modified French fries and beef that is genetically modified. I mean, I don't know what's in some of the burger places on Solano. I don't know if I'm eating 100% beef or what, but it'll be nice if the restaurant had a sticker or a seal saying we serve non-GMOs or everything's organic. That would promote a healthier community. Also, I didn't see anything in there. It's kind of a passion of mine to incorporate in the municipal code someday, whether it be the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years, please. Our city needs to have school zones. If you look on any other municipal code book around the entire Bay Area, every single city has school zones. Berkeley has school zones. Javondale's with Berkeley. You could check with him. I've done a lot of research on school zones, and I believe it would be very beneficial to our school district to make it safe. We could lower the speed limit around schools. 25 miles an hour is really fast, considering everybody's kind of forgot how to drive during the pandemic. Everybody's driving way too fast. And when we reopen schools, the cars are still going to be driving fast. And we have a limited supply of crossing guards and not enough police to enforce our schools when it comes back in session. So I would hope some sort of strategic plan in the future, maybe Mr. Tiedemann, maybe not now or in the future, we could add school zones to our municipal code book as a future agenda item. And we could really take a serious look on that, because parents are too busy cooking dinner at night to come to these meetings. Students are so young, they can't voice their opinion on these meetings. But I've been a voice of the.
Time is up.
Okay, check with the city clerk. I got 800 signatures for school zones.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Next.
Hi, I wasn't sure exactly how this is going to work. It seems like maybe no one's sure. I didn't know if there was going to be comments on every section, which seemed like it would take until tomorrow. So I just have a couple comments, but I know this is already the strategic plan, so I'm not really clear on what to say. But I wanted to just point out in the objective to enhance communication and transparency programs, the work plan item and then the status of the comments, it sounds like the assumption is that by mailing out 2 mailers that somehow that enhances communication and transparency. And this feeds into what I was talking about before, the lack of communication with the community. And there's several other things there too. So I guess, and I also have a concern about the benches in the parks. I just want to make sure you don't put in benches that have arms. But I think overall, I agree with Mayor Gary that there needs to be accountability built into this so that you find out, you have a way of establishing who is actually receiving the information or impacted or what's actually happened, so that people feel like they are being communicated with, that you hear from people. So much of this is just rhetoric that doesn't happen. Every year, I see the same words, the same, yes, we're communicating, yes, just go to our website, yes. I know that I'm Jeremiah and I tend to repeat ourselves because we feel passionately about these issues. So I'm doing that again, but it bothers me to look like this is like this item was checked off. Like, oh yeah, we did increase accountability and transparency because we sent out 2 postcards. It's just doesn't make any sense to me. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Hi, this is Corey Dusty, they, them. Mostly, since this is about the structure, I think that I agree it's more efficient to keep this structure and tweak it rather than spend money on a consultant for something that's about just goal setting and overall directions to staff. And I have various comments, but I think they're more for the work session. So the only thing I wanted to say was about cannabis is that can be a route for reparations, as Black folks have been way more penalized. Like the war on drugs was about targeting Black folks over cannabis, but now, and folks are still locked up, and but all of the businesses and dispensaries tend to be white owned and dominated because of who's able to get funding faster and take spots. So just as I would suggest increasing racial equity, integrating it into the strategic plan, when you look at revising it, I think cannabis could be a possible part of that. Although, maybe not before July. Sure. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey, for your comment. Are there any attendees? Their hands up? All right. All right, I'm going to bring it back to City Council for discussion. So we have a couple of things going on here. Staff just presented this report to us, right? There has been a comment that, staff should go in and try to extract some of the things that are not, I would say, emergencies or anything that's not relevant right now that can be pushed on to the back burner. So we need to figure out how we want to direct them to do that, if we're all in agreement with that, right? Okay, so we have this report. Is there anything else we want to discuss regarding this report before we get on to the strategic plan and the framework? Vice Mayor Jordan.
I think another council member suggested maybe staff could bring us a recommendation.
Okay.
Or, some way of prioritizing or, help us out here through all these. I went through and sort of listed the ones that I thought had been finished, the ones that were in process, the ones that hadn't been started. which ones I would get rid of, which ones I wouldn't. But I think coming from staff would be a better starting place for all of us.
Okay. All right, anyone else?
Well, is there consensus that this is a format that works? You know, we've been through one cycle with it.
I mean,
Doing
the format does work. You know, again, I would just like to see more robust as far as timeline and accountability. I think more needs to be added, but right now, just focusing on what has been presented to us today, right? And it ends June 30th of this year. If I'm correct. So, you know, we need to focus on what the immediate need now is in regarding to the strategic plan, if there's any. If there's, you know, you've suggested a couple of things to be removed. So, like Vice Mayor Jordan, maybe we have recommendations from them presented to us at a later date, and we continue to move forward on, you know, yes and no, and what is implemented and what's not before June 30th.
And let's recognize how tough it is to make advances on strategic goals when we're in the middle of an emergency. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and you know, it's nothing is the way that we thought it was going to be a year and a half ago.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Anyone else want to chime in on this? Okay. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Just to clarify, by this, you mean what can be removed or not the meta part, what we do next.
Correct. We're just focusing on this report. So are we pushing this back to staff to make recommendations to present something to us at a later date, than a couple of weeks or whatever it is, or how do we want to direct them so we can move to the next item is how do we move forward with the next strategic plan and implementing that? Vice Mayor Jordan.
So if we can move to the next strategic plan, is that an appropriate time? So going through this, I became quite confused as to what the criteria are for what is in and what is out. So for instance, it lists some things that are mandatory for the city to do, said like the housing element. It did not list other things that are mandatory for the city to do, like upgrade the sewer system. So it's kind of doesn't seem to be criteria, things that have to be done, things that don't have to be done. It had some things in it that were recurring, like do this annually. It had other things that were one time. So somebody's hungry.
It's this little beast.
Like seeing the cats on the news hour bounding around in the background. So there wasn't, you know, recurrence versus one time wasn't a criteria. You know, there were some other ways I looked at it, and another way I looked at it was, does it contain everything that is everything that's in it that could be in an advisory body work plan? Did it get promulgated into an advisory body work plan? No. Is everything that's in advisory body work plans in the strategic plan? No. So there's not, it's like completely diaphanous to me, what's in, what's out. It seems relatively chaotic. From that review, my perspective is not to continue in this vein. I think it's a tool it's not consistent. And you have other documents that contain parts of it and don't contain parts of it. And so when you have multiple documents that contain parts of things, then they can easily get out of sync and cause problems. Having gone through all this, my preference was we have a work plan process for each advisory body, which covers almost all these items and provides a means for doing prioritization. And so what we should have in our work plan as a council is only those things that cannot be put in a advisory body work plan, of which there were very few in this. And another risk I see of this is because it's this hierarchical structure. You've got these 5 themes and then objectives and then work plan items. There's a tendency to say, oh, well, we have to have 4 things under each objective. And so you end up with, you know, 60 items to be completed over a 2-year period, which just seems really untenable. And there's no prioritization. There's no sense of which of these is more important than something else. They're all the same importance the way they're listed. So I'm not keen on this format. I'm really not necessarily keen on strategic planning in general, the way I'm seeing it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. Councilmember McQuaid?
Preston, it just occurred to me, excuse me, when you look at this and it says work plan item, are you assuming that means an advisory body work plan item?
So what I did was I went through all 62 items, and then I looked at the work plans for each advisory body, and I saw which of these items was actually on the work plan of an advisory body.
So you're not directly equating the word work plan on here to an advisory body work plan?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay,
No, not that.
That's
Thank you
cool.
for clarifying,
I just want to
though.
make sure you weren't. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for clarifying. So I came up with about half of them were in advisory body work plans. And it looked like, all but maybe 5 or 6 could be in an advisory body work plan, and because they were appropriate for an advisory body to work on.
Councilmember Nason?
Yeah, I'm going to speak up for strategic plans, partly because my own background is in nonprofits, and they're used in that context quite a lot. And I think that a lot of the value of having a strategic plan is actually the process that you require the decision makers to kind of sit down and hash out and listen to each other about what different people think is important, and what they're really passionate about. And I agree with you. If this strategic plan were going to be used to develop the advisory body and staff work plans of the work that they're going to do, I think it would be a far more ambitious undertaking than this is. I see this as communication of the policymakers to the advisors and implementers, the advisory bodies and the staff, about what the council, what are the focus and priorities of the council. And a big part of that is just our communication with each other about that. And when we're going to get work plans, and we're going to have to give guidance on them. It helps us to come together. Let's say a body comes forward. Let's say we have a library commission and they come forward saying, okay, we want the libraries to be open 7 days a week, and we need to find funding for that, and so forth and so on. And we might, as a council, say, well, 7-day-a-week libraries are fabulous things, but that's not, that is a huge addition to the city's workload, and that's not where we think the funding and prioritization needs to be in our current cycle. And it's the development of the strategic plan that kind of gives us that sense of what we're going to be open to and what we're not going to be open to. And sometimes we're going to say to advisory bodies, we know you'd like to work on X, but it just isn't, that is not rising to the level of priority for the council that is going to give it the traction to move into implementation. And for this reason, because of how I see it, I don't see it as, I'm not that big on strict timelines and metrics associated with this. There do need to be some strict timelines within the staff, and they need to have milestones to make their timing objectives. But I think that this is more about how we communicate with each other about what we think is important and what we want to communicate to others about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Just got a good question. I know you were talking about us coming together as council members, but how can we make this plan to reflect the needs of the residents, right? To where we're making sure that we're answering the urgent call from our residents as a whole and as a city. I understand clearly what you're saying about the timelines and accountability issues, but we just need to make sure that. For me, just looking at, words on the paper, I would like to see more again about outcomes and how it has impacted our residents, especially during this time that we're in now. So with that said, have we considered the option of possibly having like an emergency kind of short term and then long term recommendations based on what is the immediate need right now, right? In our plan, what can we do right now? And then kind of the stuff that's long term and it's going to take a long time to develop, along the way, we can address those issues at that time as we move forward. That's just a suggestion that I think would probably help us move things along. Councilmember McQuaid.
Thank you. Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilmember Nason. I can remember the really old days before there were strategic plans in Albany, or at least in recent memory. And every time somebody had an idea, staff had to pivot and try to do something totally different because council had decided they wanted to do X. And then a month or so later, somebody would decide, no, we're going to do Y. And council and staff again would pivot and try to get it done. So this kind of came from that sort of jumping all over the place mentality to let's have a plan. Let's follow our plan. If we need to adjust it, that's fine. But let's make sure we're all marching down the same road. The staff, the advisory bodies, the council, the community, everybody is going along this basically the same path. And I think if we were not to have a strategic plan, we'd run the risk of being relatively rudderless and sort of jumping around in what we're trying to do. So I definitely think we should keep the strategic plan. I like this format. I think it works really well. I think it has to be, it's a framework. So I think in the item side of it, as I was looking at it on the left side of the screen, it's a bit vague. It's not really timelines, but I can see in the status part, it might be useful to have at least some places where we easily can have metrics and include them at that point as part of the status and update.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Councilmember McQuaid. Councilmember Tiedemann, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, thank you. Just from the past little bit of discussion, it seems like we've got a couple different ideas of what the strategic plan is useful for. So I think I kind of want to direct a question to staff of, we've gone over it being used as a way of just sort of the council talking about what we want to do and having a vision that's can be fairly broad and vague, or set implementation timeline and deliverables and direction that steers how we move, as well as the advisory bodies, as well as the staff. How is this most usefully used, or the staff level, Nicole? Is this, if we don't have a strategic plan, or if it's too vague, is the city like a chicken running around with its head cut off, or what's the best way to use this for you guys?
I absolutely appreciate the question, and I'll be clear that strategic plans can be challenging to implement, and they can be more challenging to implement with strict timelines. And I say that because staff needs flexibility. Things come up that are unexpected, and again, I want to underscore that a strategic plan is layered on top of the day-to-day responsibilities of local government. Whatever those are, privy and subject to specific departments. So this really, my experience in serving in several different roles as strategic plans have been developed over the years, they've been a way to try and channel the interests of the council for the things that kind of go above and beyond, and how to prioritize those amongst the 5 council members in terms of staff. When you have the ability, after getting through the mandates, this is what we'd like you to prioritize and focus on. And I will share that conceivably the strategic plan that you have before you is a bit extensive, and for a 2-year time frame, we probably won't accomplish everything in there. As you see, we're towards the tail end of that already. So having things probably a bit more concise would be helpful should the council want to continue with this type of strategic planning process. You'll see that it's pretty labor intensive for the council as well. So, some cities have gone away from strategic planning altogether. Some cities find it incredibly helpful, because if it's not on the strategic plan, then we need, and something comes up, then we address what's in the strategic plan and figure out what can be put on hold if something more urgent comes up. So it's a way of ensuring capacity over time. Although I'm qualifying that requires a lot of, clear focus and attention on the strategic plan over a 2-year period. And that comes and goes. Again, just the nature of the beast with local government. So really, we will defer to whatever the council's preference is. I think that the value of a strategic plan is the council expressing itself to the community. These are our goals over the next 2-year period. And when I say goals, there may be an opportunity that you're going a little more general. You're taking the goals, you're updating the goals, you're looking at the city's vision and mission statement. There's a lot of options there, and it really, again, defers to the preference of the council as a whole. I hope that's helpful. I kind of went on a tangent there.
Thank you, Nicole. Councilmember McQuaid.
It's 10:30, so I'd like to move we extend until 11.
Seconded.
Right. And go ahead with the vote.
Councilmember McQuaid,
Yes.
Councilmember Nason,
Yes.
Councilmember Tiedemann,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
Mayor Gary.
Yes. Councilmember Tiedemann, go ahead.
Thank you. So Nicole, thank you for that response. That was very helpful. With that all said, it seems to me like this framework is useful for what you're describing, with fairly broad, our big ticket goals for what we want to do with the city and what we want it to look like. And I think that discussion that we're going to have at our feature, not retreat, whatever Councilmember Nason correctly called it, will be very useful for deciding what those goals are and getting everyone's opinion on those. And this framework works for that. I think it's probably written as it is, probably a little bit too specific to be that document. It gets a little bit too in the weeds. So I think that's probably something we should take into account when we're having a discussion of what we'd like it to include more specifically.
Thank you, Councilmember Tiedemann. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Yeah, that maybe expand on where I'm at this point. It wasn't to not have any planning at all. It was rather the strategic plan and time has been coming after the work plans.
Take your time.
Thanks. I'm gonna have to let somebody else go and get some water.
Okay. That's good. Anyone else want to chime in? Why? We can take a break if anyone needs a break. No? Okay. Can we take a 5-minute break, please? And come. Thank you.
Slightly late for you, Preston, but no, it's called a 5-minute break or recess.
All right. Vice Mayor Jordan, you're okay?
I am. Thank you very much.
All right, sounds
I'm
good.
reluctant to keep water anywhere near this whole reality here, so I end up getting dehydrated.
Okay,
3 hours in. So let's see. I guess we have all 5 of us. So yeah, I wasn't. If I can jump in, I wasn't suggesting that we would have no plan. It just wouldn't be this elaborate plan. We have a planning process of work plans for the advisory bodies. And those actually come before the strategic plan, interestingly enough. And then we essentially apply that process to ourselves. And what would be on the council's work plan would be those items that would not be taken up by advisory bodies for any of various reasons. And that would make it a much more limited set. And as I said, almost everything that's in the strategic plan is or could be appropriately or would need to be taken up by an advisory body. So it seems redundant to me, and I just don't see the value in doing the work, given that it's not really a coherent set of items. If the desire is to have a conversation about what are our values and have a document that reflects, our collective themes for the next 2 years, then that's a different kind of document. I can see value in that, but this document isn't that, because it has 62 very specific items. The staff feels some impetus, some onus on itself to do work to. So it's much more than just an effort of the council talking to itself about coming together around a certain set of ideas.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. So how about this? How about we direct the staff to go back and kind of extract some of the things that maybe not be important at this time and bring it back to us and let us have a quick overview of that. Then that would be able to tell us what the next steps we need to go to in implementing a strategic plan. It's just a suggestion. I think more research needs to be done as far as how we implement this strategic plan. I like the idea of having a plan. I don't think we should just have all these different ideas and then try to bring them together. It doesn't make sense. But I do understand the fact that if the plan is redundant, right, to the advisor, it's not doing us any good to have our own strategic plan with that being implemented. So if we can have direct staff to do the research, pull things out that's not aligned with our values and what we want to see in the next couple of years, then we can kind of move forward from there. Councilmember Tiedemann.
Well, to clarify and process, the next couple of years is going to be governed by the plan that we are going to write at a retreat session at some point in the future. So I think a lot of our discussion here might not directly affect this plan as much as it will affect our drafting of the next plan.
Right. Councilmember McQuaid.
I would suggest, due to the lateness of two things, the lateness of the hour and the lateness of the year, that we pretty much leave this plan as it is. With the pandemic and everything, I'm not really sure, Nicole, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure that staff is suddenly going to start a new project between now and July. That doesn't seem very realistic. And I do agree with Councilmember Tiedemann that the plan, strategic plan, whatever we're going to call it, really is going to be drafted by the council. So what I think might work, since I think we're all kind of spinning around at least I'm spinning around in my head various ideas of leaving this as it is and start to think about what we might want to see in a future strategic plan, and bring this back, say maybe even a couple of months, to have another conversation about exactly how are we going to do this? Are we going to hire somebody? Are we going to do it ourselves? How much change do we want? But take a little bit of time to kind of let this percolate in our brains for a little while. I think for me, that would be really helpful.
I agree with that.
Thank you, Karen.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Jordan, did you want to come up? No? All right, we're going to take it and make a motion on this.
I don't think
do we need a motion on this? Nope. Okay.
If that's general consensus, I appreciate the direction, and that works fine for us as staff wise.
Don't go off and start any big projects now.
All right, with that said, we'll move to the City Council policy reviews. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember McQuaid.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that. I have a fairly long laundry list of things I'd like to have you consider on the plan. So I would like to suggest that we push that back until the next meeting or the next couple of meetings. I'm not exactly sure how it fits in our schedule, but I think I personally have a lot to talk about, and I'm sure others do, and I don't think that you want to hear it right now.
I would strongly second that. It's time to wind down, I think.
Okay. Or do we have a consensus on that? Yes, Vice Mayor Jordan, you're not saying anything. Okay. All right, he's just like looking at me. I'm like, yes, no. Okay. All right. Then we'll put that. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
I do. Well, it does seem like I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
That maybe would be efficient to use just that time for those questions now and not get into deliberation. I don't know. I think they're fairly simple questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. One is I couldn't find that there's an end time for our meetings defined in there. Maybe it's defined in some other policy, but I couldn't find the 10:30 end time in there. So I don't know where that comes from, but anyway, that's a question. Maybe I just missed it. It's in there.
It's a resolution that was adopted by the council. It's referenced on our agendas, but we can certainly add it to the policy.
It's in there in the policy under A7 adjournment.
Thanks. I will go look at that. And then the other question was, I don't, I was wondering if, and this might be a city attorney question, could you explain the meaning of the second paragraph of section J1 under procedures? This has to do with, I think J regards public hearings, and there was some, what I presume is legally highly meaningful material there, but beyond me.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get to that
Sure.
section.
Yeah. And then that's all I had in terms of questions. I thought if we get those out of the way tonight, then that'll help us next time.
And then, okay, thank you. Mala?
Yes, so with regard to the second paragraph of J1, it's in there to deal with potential employment issues that could come up before the council. It hasn't come up in at least my time here with the council, but that's the purpose of that section. So it's, I was asking my labor colleague about that specific issue, and she recommended keeping it in with a minor edit to change as otherwise required by statute to law, but it is applicable for that employment context.
Okay. So J1, I mean, J regards hearings. So would this be hearings around employment or something, or?
It could, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why that section is worded that way.
Okay.
I think you're used to probably the hearings about land use or zoning or ordinances, but there could be hearings of an employment context.
Interesting. Okay. And your surmise is correct. Thank you for peering into my brain. All right. Those were the two questions. So thank you for entertaining those.
Mayor, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you, Vice Mayor Jordan. We have two public comments. Will you go ahead and bring them in?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the current version. That's how it's supposed to be recited. The United States flag code says that's how it's supposed to be recited. And I don't understand why the word God is taken out. I don't know why city council or when they decided to not include God. I don't understand that. I mean, on America, the dollar bill or the flag, it says "In God We Trust." And I'm just curious if the city was afraid to get sued by somebody because we have the word God in the Pledge of Allegiance. You guys kind of switched it to the version from 1924 to 1954. And per U.S. government code USC Section 4, the Code of Laws of the United States of America, the official Pledge of Allegiance is supposed to be cited correctly. And I'm pretty sure the city council took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and by not reciting it correctly is not upholding the Constitution correctly. I don't know if this is an atheist thing or what's going on, why you take the word God out of it. I believe people have the right of religion to say the word God in the Pledge of Allegiance and do it correctly. If you look on Google, I don't see any of you guys actually putting your right hand over your heart during the Pledge of Allegiance. It's kind of disrespectful in a way. I don't think you guys are really representing our country and our democracy to the fullest. It would be nice if you guys upheld the United States Code and upheld to your oath by saying it correctly. I don't know why you don't put the word God in there. I mean, I don't know. I believe every one of those council members up there believes in God. And I just don't know why you would not include that in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's called the Pledge of Allegiance. You're reciting a pledge of allegiance to our country's flag, to our Constitution. And if you can't say it right, just don't say it at all. Please do it correctly, because you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, and you're failing to do that by not reciting it correctly.
Thank you, Jeremiah, for your comment. So we have another hand up.
I just wanted to say that only reason I am up this late was because of the item that you are not going to talk about tonight. So I would request that could you put it first on the agenda next time so I don't have to stay up late so that I can make my comments, because otherwise I would have gone to bed an hour and a half ago. So I'm having trouble with the fact that I sat here waiting, and now I don't get to make my comments. And then my second thing is to follow up on Jeremiah, I think that his suggestion that you don't say it at all is a very, very good suggestion. So I go with that one. But otherwise, I look forward to making my full comments when you have the discussion. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. All right. Any other attendees? Nope. Okay. All right. We all agreed to table the city council policies review until our next meeting. Is that correct? Yes. All right. We'll go into number 13, any future agenda items. Councilmember Nason.
Yeah, I would like to bring forward to the council, this is not for staff, this would be something I would write up, a proposal to the city of Berkeley that Albany and Berkeley make some requests to the California Horse Racing Board to improve transparency and consideration of local community concerns in the governance of racetracks in California. And I'm referring specifically to the problem of the enormous COVID outbreak at Golden Gate Fields, the confusion surrounding the continuation of racing. There was advertising for a long time that there was advertising between the time that racing was shut down until December 26th. The track was advertising that it would resume racing on December 26th because that was what had been allocated by the California Horse Racing Board. And that ultimately has not occurred, but we do not know, there is no information available on when racing will resume or how that decision is being made. more fundamentally. There's just nothing available to the local cities. I think that Berkeley has a bit more access to information because it has its own public health department. But we rely on the Alameda County Public Health Department. And this is a major public health concern for our community. And in general, the regulation of the racetrack, horse racetracks have their own regulatory body, which is devoted to their protection and promotion. And the well-being of the local community does not really come into it. And I think that we should unite with Berkeley in trying to get some change, or at a minimum, some transparency about how decision making is so important to local public health, how decision making is being made.
Thank you, Councilmember Nason. Anyone else?
Sorry. We've had maybe for our next report from the staff, I get a lot of emails and calls and things about the bowling alley. And I think that it would be nice to hear from the staff on the staff perspective on what has occurred and how this news impacts the city. That's all.
I'm gonna pause. Anyone else before I open up? What I would like to see on the agenda is a COVID-19 plan. As we continue to be in shelter in place, eventually at some point we will start moving out of that. But I would like us to sit down and try to think about ways that we can help our city start opening up when that time comes, instead of being reactive, being proactive and putting measures into place. That way we won't be, caught off guard by businesses taking matters in their own hands, or even residents. So just something to think about. I think we should just have a COVID plan as far as how our city will reopen under the guidelines with the county as well. So just something to think about. All right. Are there any public comments?
I
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
Jeremiah.
Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Just two future agenda items. One is obviously school zones, for school zones to be reevaluated by this new council. And the other one is a really big alcohol tax. I know Golden Gate Fields has dollar days and they sell beers for $1. Imagine if we got 5 or 10 cents on every beer or beverages more. We have a sugar and soda sweetened beverage tax because we don't want people to get diabetes. We want people to be healthy. I think we should push for an alcohol tax because alcoholism it's a disease, I guess. And, if we could discourage the use of alcohol, it would be great, because that's when car accidents happen and a lot of bad things from alcohol happens. Domestic violence, all sorts of bad things happen with alcohol, probably a lot more worse than drinking soda pop. I think we should push for alcohol beverage tax if we don't already have one. But I think we should push for that because we could generate a lot of money for our city to go to maybe a specific fund instead of a general fund like the soda tax. It could be a specific fund to where the money goes to alcohol prevention, to our schools. We can open up a program in the high school, alcohol awareness, kind of like DARE used to be, drug assistance resistance education. But I think if we have an alcohol tax, we could push for that. That would be great, because I think alcohol is a lot worse than soda pop. I mean, soda pop, sure, it makes you fat or unhealthy, gives you diabetes, or whatever happens drinking soda. I just figured having an alcohol tax, I think a lot more people in Albany drink alcohol more than soda. we could probably generate $1 million a year with a simple 1 cent or 2 cent tax for that. So just please consider that a future agenda item, and be aware of alcohol consumption within our community. I mean, and you know, it's just advertised like 5 tacos and beer. I don't see how it's legal to even put the word beer on the name of a business. Like they're advertising beer. I thought it's illegal to advertise beer and things like that. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We're going to item 14, announcement and city meetings and events. If you govern yourself to the next the events that are upcoming meetings. And at this time, if there's anything else that council members want to say before I adjourn the meeting. All right, it's 10:59 and meeting's adjourned. Have a good evening.